Good afternoon. The Committee on Finance is called to order. We will ask the clerk to read the title of Bill number 190186. Before she does, we note that we have a quorum. To my right, Councilwoman Cindy Bass, sponsor of this bill. To my left, Councilwoman Sherelle Parker. To her left, Vice Chair Bobby Henon, and to his left, Bill Greenlee. Would the clerk please read the title of this bill?
190186, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Taxes and Rents, General, by providing for a temporary tax amnesty program under which delinquent taxpayers may satisfy their past due tax obligations with forgiveness of all or a portion of accrued interest and penalties under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much. We'll call on the first panel, Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, and Yuri Munson, CFO, School District of Philadelphia. We thank you for coming. Invite you to identify yourselves and make your testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chair Blackwell and members of the Committee on Finance. I'm Revenue Commissioner and Chief Collections Officer Frank Breslin. I am here today to testify on behalf of the administration in opposition to Bill 190186. I am joined here by First Deputy Commissioner Marissa Waxman. This bill amends Chapter 19-500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Taxes and Rents, General, by providing for a temporary tax amnesty program for delinquent taxpayers. The administration, like council, is committed to helping all taxpayers and homeowners who are unable to meet their obligations get back on track with affordable payment plans and tax relief. We also jointly work to make sure that everyone pays their fair share and those who can afford to pay do so with programs like sequestration. The tax dollars collected are necessary to fund city services and to support the School District of Philadelphia. Since 2013, the city has made great improvements in reducing delinquency and increasing on-time payments through a combination of more robust safety nets with programs like UPA, Homestead, and the new flexible business tax payment plans launched last year, and consistent, swift, meaningful enforcement that have changed the perception and reality that no one needs to pay taxes timely. These new tools are effective, and Council's partnership to create collection and relief mechanisms through legislation and subsequent outreach and awareness has been essential. The amnesty program proposed in Bill 190186 is a tool that will reverse this progress. It will damage the finances of the city and school district and undermine efforts to create a culture of compliance. While amnesties can create a spike in collections, they are followed by periods of reduced collection activity and foregone income. The fiscal impact analysis of Bill 190186 projects a negative impact of $6 to $110 million to the city and school district through fiscal year 2024. The school district's share of the net revenue loss is estimated to be up to $45.4 million. Unlike the situation during Philadelphia's last amnesty less than a decade ago during the Great Recession, the city is not facing a budget shortfall that would justify a short-term infusion of cash to prevent service cuts despite anticipated long-term costs. Our fiscal footing is far firmer today, with revenue collections on target to meet or exceed estimates for fiscal year 19, and no projected gaps in the fiscal year 20 5-year plan. We also have in place more generous payment plans and relief programs and lower interest and penalty rates. The costs of an amnesty program go far beyond the loss of $6 to $110 million over the coming years that is currently identified to support city services and the school district. The operational burden will mean diverting resources away from work that would benefit all taxpayers, like replacing our 35-year-old IT system with a modern version that will provide more service and self-service and transparency, and the ongoing efforts to increase enrollment in assistance programs and ramp up enforcement in programs like sequestration. Another cost is taxpayers' confidence in our system. More than 96% of real estate taxes and over 90% of all other taxes are paid on time by Philadelphia residents and businesses operating here, an all-time high. Assurance that there are consequences for failing to pay is essential to maintaining that confidence. Amnesties are a blunt instrument, giving massive savings to companies that have ducked and dodged our auditors and lawyers who should and could pay. In the last amnesty, 44% of the relief went to businesses located outside of Philadelphia. And no amnesty can beat what we already offer our homeowners: affordable payments based on income as low as $0 per month and waiving up to 100% of interest and penalties. Businesses without a long history of noncompliance can get into agreements as long as 60 months with just the first month's payment down, and will waive up to 100% of penalties with a lump sum payment. The one-size-fits-all nature of amnesties like this one introduces unfairness into our tax structure. Due to the significant cost to the city and school district, minimal benefit to our most vulnerable taxpayers, inability to tailor an amnesty to small businesses or those with smaller debts due to the PA Constitution's uniformity clause, and the inherent problems with any amnesty compared to our current balance of enforcement and assistance programs, the administration opposes this bill and any tax amnesty at this time. I have met with the sponsor to understand the motivation behind the bill, and we share her desire to help homeowners and help small businesses get back on track. The fiscal 20 budget proposal includes $100,000 in funding for expanding outreach for homeowner relief and payment plans. We support additional robust communications around the newer business tax payment plans that aren't as widely known or utilized, as well as promotion of our voluntary disclosure program, which waives all penalties for unregistered businesses that come forward before we find them. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes the sponsor of this bill, Councilwoman Bass. All right, we will hear all of the testimony for this panel, then she'll ask her questions.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Blackwell and members
Good
of
afternoon.
members of the committee. I'm Ori Monson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the School District of Philadelphia. I'm here to explain the impact on the school district of Bill 190186, which would provide for the temporary tax amnesty program. And let me begin by saying unequivocally that I oppose the proposed legislation. Numerous reviews of prior amnesty programs across the country come to the same conclusion. Amnesty programs are the epitome of short-term gain and long-term pain for taxing authorities. Amnesty programs usually recognize a short-term cash gain, which is why they are popular when taxing authorities have cash flow concerns or are struggling with routine collection rates. In the medium and long term, however, collection rates fall as resources are diverted from collection efforts and taxpayers are trained that they will be ultimately rewarded for failing to pay taxes. As it specifically applies to the school district, we project that the proposed amnesty program would have a short-term positive impact for the district of about $2.5 million over the next fiscal year, depending on the timing of the program. But we also project a net reduction in revenues of about $33 million through fiscal year 24, the end of our newly proposed 5-year plan. Given that our current 5-year plan reflects positive fund balances for the first 2 years and negative fund balances in the last 3 years of the plan, the proposed amnesty plan is exactly the opposite of what the school district needs. It will slightly increase cash flow when we have no cash flow issues and reduce our revenues when we are facing shortfalls. In short, the proposed amnesty bill is a policy approach proven to have a negative impact on long-term collection rates, thereby threatening the core, sustainable, recurring, predictable revenues which the school district relies on in order to make investments in our students, staff, and schools. I strongly oppose Bill 190186. That concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. It's just the two of you are testifying. Thank you very much. The sponsor of the bill, Councilwoman Cindy Bass.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So, I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to thank everyone who's here today. And I think that amnesty is a very common sense approach to addressing the needs of our citizens. It's plain and simple. This is not something that is unheard of. The city of Philadelphia has done this before, and we do, despite some suggestions that we do not, as a body, have the statutory authority to address this matter. We do have the statutory authority, as we have done this previously with a previous abatement amnesty program and with the most recent PPA amnesty program that was done last year or so. And so I just had a couple of questions, because I understand that the administration obviously is opposed to doing any sort of amnesty. And there are some questions that I just can't seem to understand. They don't make sense to me. And I'm wondering if you can help me to understand how this is going to cost the city of Philadelphia. I think your estimate was somewhere around $5 million or so. How is this going to cost when we already, we have a collections department, am I correct?
We do.
Okay, so if we already have these mechanisms in place, can you explain to me how it is that this program is going to cost us additional dollars?
Yes, sure. Amnesty sounds really simple, and that's probably the attraction. Run an amnesty and you generate a lot of money, and that's the appearance. And we ran an amnesty in 2010 for a specific reason, because there was a budget shortfall, and it does generate money fast, but it generates it at long-term cost, because an amnesty is although it sounds very simple, is very complex to run. Essentially, we have to shut down our billing processes to ramp up for an amnesty. Get the receivables ready. We essentially have to, in the last amnesty, we chose to run it, use a vendor to run it. We pulled everything back from all our collection activities, so all our collection vendors are put on hold. Our co-counsel that runs sheriff sales, that activity has to stop. They basically stop operations.
Why do you have to stop all of your operations to run amnesty?
It would be complex either way. In talking to other jurisdictions back in 2010 when we did it, and amnesties, because of the Great Recession, were popular then. A lot of jurisdictions were trying to fill budget shortfalls, and that was the purpose. So we looked at jurisdictions and learned from talking to jurisdictions that it was an incredible burden to run it internally because of scalability, and that the jurisdictions that were most successful, and we were monitoring New Jersey, who had an incredibly successful amnesty program at that time, and how they ran it, and they chose to use an outside vendor. Because you have to remember, while we're running this amnesty program, we have to maintain all normal operations.
Absolutely.
And run at the end of a fiscal year. It coincides with our busiest time of the year, when we're processing all of the tax returns that are coming in. It's our busiest time in the department. So to be able to do our normal operations and not sacrifice services to all citizens, and to have a successful amnesty, we thought and believed that it led to the success of that amnesty in raising the revenue, that we needed to use an outside vendor. That being said, the other reason that we lose money is when you run the amnesty program, generates lots of activity in a very short period of time. Our last program was 54 days. And even though we had a considerable marketing budget, and part of that marketing campaign was to tell taxpayers to please come in early, their situation may be complex, they may have non-filed tax returns that have to be filed, they may need time to get their tax records together to file those returns. The majority of people wait until the last 10 days, 2 weeks of the program. So it's just it's really hard to
So
explain.
knowing that you can't shift your staff, if you already know that the majority of the people are going to be coming in the last 10 days to 2 weeks, you can't shift so that you can maintain your other operations, and then in the last 10 days or 2 weeks, apply additional staff?
No, we could not.
You cannot do that.
No. And if there was even a thought that we could, having directed the last amnesty program and having seen what the last 10 days of that program were like, there's no doubt that we could not do that. And at any time of the year,
Yeah.
but definitely not at the time of the year when we ran that, which coincides with our busy time.
One of the concerns that I have is that the city of Philadelphia overly complicates things that do not need to be complicated matters. This is not hard. This is not difficult. This is not as difficult as it is being made to be. I believe that we can offer our citizens an amnesty program that's going to be something that's going to be helpful, that's going to help them get out of the debt that they have with the city of Philadelphia, that's going to allow them to right their financial situation, and it almost feels as if the city is not interested in doing that. I have the example that I use most often is of a taxpayer who has a small business who in 2002 had a $400 tax bill that was uncollected that ballooned currently today into $10,000. So she went from $400 to $10,000. She also accumulated over the years a total of about $10,000 in principal balance. And that balance now, including interest and penalty, is closer to $80,000 on a $10,000 principal balance. And so I say that there is something that we can do. There are things that we can do, and we just have to figure out how to make that happen. Now, we did have an opportunity to meet and to talk about how we could work together in a spirit of cooperation. And we offered, in my opinion, revenue an opportunity to come up with amendments. Tell us what'll work. Tell us what ideas you have. Let's figure out a way that we can actually be on the same page. But we have received word that you're not interested in any amendments whatsoever to try to make this work for the citizens of Philadelphia.
Yeah, so, I was happy that we did have the opportunity to talk and discuss, and we came back from that meeting, and our team convened and worked for approximately a day and a half looking at ways that, if there were any ways that we could get this bill, to something that we could agree on, and we were unable to come up with anything. That's not to say that we won't continue to work with your office. I think we've made great progress working with your office on our payment agreement terms. And to the example of the taxpayer that you just talked about, we do have agreement terms that would help that person, and a lump sum payment would get rid of all of the penalty. And I'm sure that that's a significant portion of that inflated debt. So we do have programs that we think are more effective because they're more precise, and we can target that particular taxpayer in that situation. When we go to an amnesty, it affects all taxpayers, and what we learned from the last amnesty is there will be very big corporations, there will be very bad players who will benefit from this.
Right. And we discussed that. And so wouldn't it make sense then that the administration would offer amendments that would put some sort of caps or limits in terms of who would actually benefit from the amnesty program, so that we can make sure that we're reaching the folks in the neighborhood, we're reaching folks who are in gentrified neighborhoods who might be losing their houses, we're reaching out to people who are small business owners, and as the example I cited earlier, could possibly, go under in their business because of this tax debt. Isn't there a way that we can structure tax amnesty so that it benefits the populations that we're trying to address?
I think it's better served not through a tax amnesty. I think we could try to force a tax amnesty to fit that situation, but lots of people who should not benefit would benefit. It would be very hard to administer, and I think there's better ways to help those taxpayers.
Who benefits from tax abatements? do you have any, like, when we think about abatements, right? 10 years, pretty much tax-free, all over the city. No one wants to, have the conversation about slowing it down in administration. We give away millions and millions of dollars every year and have done so for almost the last 20 years. And so when will we do something to address the inequity that exists? Is this something that we can do, something relatively easy, relatively small by the city standards, that would effectively address the inequity that exists between those who receive 10 years tax-free versus those who have been struggling for 10 years or more with their tax burdens with the city of Philadelphia?
I think an amnesty program just creates inequity.
You think an amnesty program creates inequity, but not an abatement program?
I'm speaking to the amnesty program, and I
Well,
think
does the abatement program create inequity as well?
I don't know. I didn't come here prepared to discuss the abatement program today, but I did come prepared to discuss the amnesty program.
Well, with all due respect, as the revenue commissioner, I think that you discussing I know that you're fully versed on the 10-year tax abatement.
Yes,
Right, you're aware of what it is, right?
I am, yes.
Okay, all right. So do you know what kind of impact the abatement program has on the city of Philadelphia?
I mean, there was just a study on the abatement, and I am not the abatement expert, so it's not what I'm here to speak about.
Can you describe in your own words what an abatement is? What do you see an abatement as? What kind of program is it?
The abatement?
Yes.
You want to describe the program?
Yes.
The program is for people who purchase new construction or do improvements to an existing property. They get an abatement on their real estate taxes for the value of that improvement.
So, and that's over a 10-year period here in the city of Philadelphia?
Yes.
And so by your definition, then that means that they are not paying a substantial portion of real estate taxes for the most part over a 10-year period.
Correct.
And those abatements are happening throughout the entire city of Philadelphia, but primarily in certain neighborhoods, more wealthier neighborhoods, more affluent neighborhoods. I would say Center City, neighborhoods surrounding Center City, and the value of those properties is significant, would you say?
They could be, yes. I mean, I don't want to speak in general terms because, again, I'm not the expert. I don't know what properties are affected, and there's people, I'm sure, doing improvements that are not that significant and getting the abatement. But I agree with you on the nature of the abatement program, the fact that it's a 10-year tax abatement on the improvement of a property, yes.
But if we can give an abatement to people who are able to pay, but unwilling, why can't we give an abatement to people who are willing to pay but unable?
Because an abatement...
There is a willingness. The idea is to attract and approach the people who are willing to pay their real estate taxes but can't. And right now, we give an abatement or a 10-year tax, basically a giveaway. We do a complete giveaway on these taxes. And so why can't we reach out to folks who are struggling to address this inequity? Why can't we do that?
Because this tax amnesty, aside from all the reasons, one of the reasons that was in my testimony is that it will benefit people that can afford to pay and choose not to pay. It will affect, in our last amnesty, 44% of the businesses that received relief were non-Philadelphia businesses. So there's a perfect example. I mean, I worked with that program and saw huge corporations come in and take advantage of an amnesty program and get immense amounts of relief. Some of these were businesses that prior to the amnesty were at our door negotiating, and we would have received more revenue from them had there not been an amnesty.
So this goes back to our conversation when we met a couple of days ago. And we were told that this number you just quoted, 44% of the entities that benefited from the last tax amnesty were not Philadelphia-based. and they were able to receive this benefit. And we said at that time that this was a great opportunity then to add that as an amendment to the bill so that non-Philadelphians would not be able to take advantage and game the system, and that we would be able to help those who are here in the city of Philadelphia who are the ones that we're trying to attract, who are struggling with their taxes. So we talked about this, and we talked about that as a possible amendment. So why is that not something that you would be willing to add as an amendment to the bill to make it work for everyone?
Because there's significant legal challenges to trying to do that. You know, we've talked about the Pennsylvania Constitution.
What are the legal challenges to putting, what are the legal challenges to putting Philadelphians first in the city of Philadelphia? Is there any reason why we can't find a way to be supportive of people who live and pay taxes in the city and have invested?
I think, you know, my testimony states that, you know, the department and the administration is dedicated to that purpose, and that an amnesty is not the way to do that.
I'm sorry, I cannot understand why this is something that is unacceptable to the administration. I just do not understand.
I think
and I do not, particularly in light of the strong support for tax abatements. This is something that can happen. This is something that should happen if we're really a city that's trying to do something. You know, we have this whole anti-poverty agenda, and not being able to help people who are living in neighborhoods where they're struggling to hold on. My grandmother's house, your grandmother's house, everybody's grandmother's house, and a lot of our neighborhoods are built next door to brand new properties that are going for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. And so how do we support those long-term taxpayers who have been there, who have been holding these neighborhoods down? How do we support them if we can't offer them a program that is very simple? It does not have to cost up to $5 million. We have everything that we need. We are already in the collection business. We have the people, we have the equipment. This does not require that level of investment.
We will lose that. You know, we believe that we will lose those revenues. One of the things that was very helpful about having an amnesty in 2010 was we have significant statistics from that program of who participated and what the results of that program were, and no reason to believe that that won't be replicated if we do an amnesty. And what we also learned was that, you know, I don't want to keep using the blunt instrument kind of statement here, but really it benefits a lot of people that I don't think you're trying to target. And we learned from that last amnesty that there are people that will benefit, that is not the intention, that is not your intention, and I think there are better ways to do that, and we remain committed to work with your office and all of City Council to try to help them. And I think we've exhibited that desire through UPA, through what we've done with UPA. Our outreach people, our outreach staff and communication staff were out at over 200 community events last year trying to reach people, and we're committed to improving the safety net and helping people and working with your office and with City Council to offer that relief, offer relief and safety net without benefiting everyone else who's out there, which could be large corporations, which could be really bad players that are intentionally, that are tax evaders. I mean, this program would benefit people who are tax evaders.
You know, the idea that people who are struggling, for the most part, are just tax evaders is, you know,
no, that's a mischaracterization.
It's a terrible narrative.
No, that's a mischaracterization.
Let me just finish 1 second. I'm sorry?
That's a mischaracterization.
Okay,
that's not what I was saying.
Well, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no. We want to help the people that need help and are willing to pay and are struggling to pay. And they are not tax evaders, and I don't want that to be the tax, but
Okay.
there are people that can afford to pay, that have a culture of they don't want to pay, and our efforts over the last 6 years through
I
CAL
think that there-
revocation and sequestration have helped to change that culture and force people who can afford to pay, and we don't want them to really, it doesn't make sense. I don't think your intention was to benefit them
Well,
in a tax amnesty program.
Well, I understand. Listen, I understand that, the idea is that there are a lot of people out here who are able to pay and unwilling to pay, and they all have abatements. So there's something that needs to be done here to level the playing field and to make this equal.
Yes.
There has to be a way that we can address this so that we can give folks a break. Listen, it's campaign season. I also call it silly season because, you see all kinds of things, you hear all kinds of things. But I think that there's no doubt about it that the electorate is mad. They are frustrated, they are upset because government has not worked for them. The city has not worked for them. And when we talk about providing city services, and we say things like we don't need additional dollars from the tax amnesty, that we don't need to collect this money because of the surplus last year. They're not seeing it going into their neighborhoods. It's not going into the neighborhoods. And so we do need the revenue. We need additional trash collection. Our streets are dirtier than they've ever been. We need money for our school district. That money can go into the schools despite what was said. That money can go into other services that our city needs. And I just do not understand for the life of me why this is why there is so much pushback that this is something that is problematic in some way for the city to collect money that has been outstanding, that is likely going to go uncollected. Do you think that the person that I mentioned earlier, the small business owner in my district, do you think that this person is ever going to be able to pay the city of Philadelphia $80,000? It's never going to happen.
But we have.
And so how are we able to help her get right and at the same time address what the city needs, which is to collect at least the principal balance?
We have programs. We have programs now that could help that taxpayer, and she would. We have programs now that could assist that taxpayer, and that taxpayer would not have to pay $80,000, and they wouldn't necessarily have to come up with a lump sum. We would work with them to determine if a lump sum is appropriate with the appropriate amount of penalty abatement, or whether a 5-year payment plan is more appropriate and work some level of abatement there. But I don't think in any of those situations would that taxpayer have to pay the full amount due. We would have,
I think they knocked it down from $80,000 to $40,000. So let me ask you that question. Do you think that she'll ever be able to come up with $40,000? It's not going to happen.
I don't know the circumstances.
We gave you a copy of the taxpayers' information. I'll share it again just to refresh your memory. But it's just never going to happen. So that was the deal that was given to her. Okay, well, you don't have 80. We'll settle for 40. So it's just completely unrealistic. And again, if we want to save businesses, and if we really want to save people from losing their homes from sheriff sale, then this is something I think that we have to do, and we have to do it now. So I'm going to come back, Madam Chair. I know that there are other questions, but I'll come back.
Thank you very much. The chair also notes that Councilman Dom is present also for this hearing. And as my housing person just told me, she referenced U.S. bank lien sales and subsequent lien sales have hurt long-time homeowners. If we can do lien sales, then it seems to me we can do amnesty. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Sherelle Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Breslin, and to the panel, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Commissioner Breslin, I want to start with some hypotheticals that I want to ask you about. And when I give you the scenarios, I want you to tell me if the people and the businesses who I am about to describe would be eligible for tax amnesty if this bill passes. So please bear with me. there's a nuisance business in my district. They have several L&I violations. There's drug activity happening either inside or outside of the business. It turns out that the business is delinquent in its liquor sales tax and business taxes. Would this business be eligible for tax amnesty?
Yes.
Next, Commissioner. There's a parking lot company. They pay their workers low wages. They schedule them for long hours, and they do it sometimes intentionally to drive understaffing. And then they retaliate against the employees who speak out, let alone try to organize by firing them. However, it turns out that they're delinquent on their parking taxes. Would this company be eligible for tax amnesty?
Yes.
Final scenario. Imagine there's an out-of-state speculator. We're going to call it ABC LLC. They routinely buy up properties in gentrifying areas, and they sit on these properties for months, if not years, hoping that the property values would in essence skyrocket and they will make a fortune on them. They don't care about the neighbors or the community, but in the meantime, they also don't pay their property taxes. Would this LLC, ABC LLC, would it be eligible for tax amnesty?
It would.
Let me ask you this. When I was in Harrisburg, as chair of the Philadelphia delegation of the Pennsylvania House, the year I remember, I think it was 2013, we worked in tandem, hand in glove with this city council, Council President Darrell Clark and his staff, to provide this city of Philadelphia with the tools that it needed to collect additional delinquent property taxes, because we were getting blown away in our stats when it showed the dismal record that we had in collecting them. We did a couple of things. One, we gave the city the enabling authority to create loop, because we knew that this city was suffering from gentrification. And Councilman Johnson, Councilman Squilla, along with former Rep. Michael Bryant, may he rest in peace, they were feeling it very hard because gentrification was impacting their districts. And they all said, we need to provide a vehicle to help long-term owner occupants in the city of Philadelphia so that they can stave off the increases to their real estate taxes. That's one. The second thing we did, and I'll still remember the visual that Herb Wetzel developed that showed the multiple properties that speculators owned in the city of Philadelphia, 20, 30 properties, and then they used an aerial Google map to show us the houses, the private homes that these property owners lived in. I'm talking about mansions in Villanova. But although they refused to pay their property taxes here in the city of Philadelphia, this city did not have the authority to place a lien on the mansion in Villanova. In addition to that, we codified for the city of Philadelphia. Although the executive branch had the authority to allow residents to enter into payment agreements, it was the Pennsylvania General Assembly that codified, again, working in conjunction with this council, the ability of Philadelphia residents to make payment arrangements and installments and to give you, the revenue department, the flexibility to meet the needs of the constituency based on their economic income. Do you remember all three of those legislative initiatives and tools that were given to the city?
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. Where are we now relative to the city's collection rate of delinquent property taxes?
Our collection rate is much better now. I mean, we're at an all-time high in collection of property taxes at 96.1%.
So I need to interject. So right now, the city of Philadelphia has a 96% collection rate for our property taxes and other taxes.
For our property taxes, and above 90% for other taxes.
So 96 for property taxes and above 90% for other taxes. Now, let me ask you, Ori, for relative to the school district. Let me ask you about the school district. Just last week, I had the great honor and distinction of standing with Randy Weingarten, who is the international president of the PFT, Jerry Jordan, who is the president of the PFT, State Senator, our Democratic Appropriations Chair, Vincent Hughes, Jason Dawkins, who is chair of the Philadelphia delegation in the Pennsylvania House, and a slew of members from the Philadelphia delegation at a school in South Philadelphia. The purpose of a press conference that we all attended was to raise awareness about the aging infrastructure in the school district of Philadelphia relative to our buildings. And based on a Plan Con report that was strongly driven by Senator Hughes, who's been at the forefront of this battle to get revenue that we need so that we can rebuild these antiquated, outdated, technically deficient, lead-filled, asbestos-filled schools that our students have to attend. And in that Plan Con report, it noted that there was a $5 billion price tag if we wanted to, in essence, rebuild, repair, restore, and remediate schools in the city of Philadelphia. We know that we don't have the ability to come up with $5 billion right now, but we've come up with a plan that calls for a $170 million investment in schools to make capital improvements, to restore, repair, renew, and remediate for those environmental issues that you heard me just mention. Let me just ask you, if this amnesty bill were to become law and the cuts that you talked about or the negative fiscal impact that it would have on the school district of Philadelphia, would it have an impact on your being able to contribute even $1 to those efforts to be able to rebuild, restore, and remediate our school buildings?
So our proposed 5-year plan assumes borrowing $250 million every other year, so $750 million in our effort to make a dent in the $4.5 to $5 billion facility issues that we have across the district. That is predicated on our ability to repay that debt, which assumes certain recurring revenues. And our whole point of this is if across the country, every study that's been done on this shows that collection rates will fall as a result of an amnesty program. That's the recurring revenue. That's a third of our more than a third of our revenue is city real estate revenue. If that is not coming in on a routine basis at the same rate and it's going to drop off, that affects how much we can borrow because we need those revenues to offset our borrowing. So the $750 million we can put in and any additional funds that obviously that group that that spoke so well last week about trying to get an additional $170 million gets us closer to what we need to address the $4.5 to $5 billion issue we have.
Thank you, Commissioner Breslin. I want to come back to you, and I'll yield, Madam Chairman, in a second. Commissioner, I'm reading this testimony, and there's a number in this testimony that is bothering me. It is making me think of a quote that I heard in undergrad that said, of all of our studies, it is history that is best qualified to reward its research. And on the second page of your testimony, you note that in the last amnesty, 44% of the relief went to businesses located outside of the city of Philadelphia. Now, again, I only spent 10 years in Harrisburg. That was only long enough to find my way to the bathroom, so I don't, pretend to know everything, okay? But it's the reason why 44% of this relief went to businesses located outside of the city. It has anything to do with something called the uniformity clause in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that does not give this city of the first class the ability to either charge different rates on commercial properties versus home residential properties and allows you to decide during a program such as amnesty that you could literally say, we want it for this group but not for this group. Does this at all, the city's ability to do this this? Is it connected to the uniformity clause, which is not governed or granted by the city of Philadelphia? We can only get it if it's granted. The enabling authority that we introduced when working with Council President Clark in 2013, there was a 4-package deal called the Philadelphia Tax Fairness Package, and it was the only bill out of all of them that we unfortunately didn't have the strength to get passed. So does the uniformity clause impact what you described in your testimony?
Yes, it does. It restricts us from being able to exclude them from an amnesty program.
So let me ask you this finally, and I want to just state this for the record. I'm looking at data, and this is data. You know, it's very important. First, let me ask you, I talked about that loop. I talked about loop. You mentioned UPA. I was at a town meeting, a budget briefing and town hall meeting in the 9th District yesterday at St. Athanasius School. And we had all of our vendors there providing our community with information. And one piece of information that the seniors are always happy to hear about is our senior tax freeze program. When I reference senior tax freeze, loop and or UPA, that 44% of people who benefited the last time we did tax amnesty, are they allowed to benefit from UPA, from loop, from the senior tax freeze?
They are not.
And would you say that the reason why they are ineligible to participate is because we have eligibility requirements?
Correct.
And would you say if there are homeowners throughout the city of Philadelphia who are delinquent in their property taxes and or small businesses, that if they are eligible, they meet the eligibility requirements, that if they come to our revenue department, and I know if they come to my office and they live in the 9th, I'm gonna knock your door down if you don't provide them with access to the opportunity and they're eligible. So is there anything other than the eligibility requirement that is impeding a barrier to access to a payment agreement?
No, there's not.
Finally,
Madam Chair, point of order.
Point of order. Councilman
Could I just
Greenwood.
respectfully ask, when it's hard to hear the answers sometimes to the questions when people are shouting out. I know there's people who want to testify. If I could ask them to please let the panel answer the questions. I would appreciate that for everybody's benefit. Thank
All
you,
right,
Madam Chair.
thank you, Councilman.
finally, Madam Chair, I will just state this for the record, and this is for the benefit of residents throughout the 9th Councilmatic District who are not seated in this chamber today and who are watching at home. I want you to know that I want you to be proud. We have, or come in, #1 in the 9th Councilmatic District as it relates to residents who are in payment agreements here in the city of Philadelphia. I want you to know that we are #1. This is the number of accounts that are delinquent. That means property owners in the 9th Councilmatic District who are delinquent in paying their property taxes, although they are delinquent, and they are #1 when it comes to attempting to go to the revenue department and say, City of Philadelphia, I want to make sure that I protect my most valuable asset. I want to protect my home. I want to enter into a payment agreement. So I want all residents from my district who are listening to know, thank you, because you're in those agreements, not because you're rich. Because if they were rich and they had the ability to just pay that disposable income and just go to the bank and withdraw it and come and pay it, my people would pay it. But they get into payment agreements because they don't have the income. They're like my grandmother and my grandfather. They came to poverty and they made sure that I would get out of it. And it didn't mean that they were rich. It just meant that they were a nickel over the income eligibility guidelines in order to qualify for anything. So I also want to note for the record that we have the 3rd fewest delinquent accounts in the city of Philadelphia. Sherelle, again, are you like bragging that the people in the 9th District are rich? I ask you to take a stroll through the district. They're hardworking people. They're domestic workers like my grandmother. They're retired military workers just like my grandfather, and they are not rich people. However, they're working hard to maintain maintain their assets, and if they have to get into a payment agreement, and I didn't know it, I have to say, until I read the testimony, that some of the payment agreements that our residents are allowed to get into, it can require them to get all of their penalties and interest waived and to have a zero payment plan. Did I read that accurately in this testimony? And you're telling me the only barrier to entry into accessing any of the programs that this city council has enacted into law to ensure that Philadelphians are protected, the only barrier to entry is eligibility, and that's what separates Philadelphians from gaining access versus that 44% of rich folks who lived outside of the city who benefited 10 years ago? Thank you for getting it all on the record.
Thank you. We're going to allow Cindy Bass to ask a short question, then Councilman Greenlee, and then Councilman Henon.
I just wanted to, I just heard some of the responses, and I wanted to go over some of the things that you and I have discussed over the years. Because the assumption that we have this revenue department that anyone can walk into, make a payment arrangement without an issue, with favorable terms, interest and penalty wiped away, that is a situation now is absolutely untrue. And so you and I have had conversations, Commissioner, and we have worked diligently with your office for a number of years now to put programs into place to address some of the issues that were lacking in revenue. And we even brought it to your attention again this week when we met about how people were coming down to the Revenue Department and were still being turned away when they wanted to make payment arrangements. And so the idea that you would suggest that we have these great arrangements, we have these great programs, they're open to everyone. All you have to do is come on downtown. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I know it, and I believe that you know it as well. We've worked on these things for a long time now. We worked when people were coming into revenue, and if you had a $10,000 bill with the city of Philadelphia, they might say, the person might say, well, I've got $5,000 right now. Depending on the moment, the kind of day that person was having, they could say, I don't want $5,000. I want $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000, or else we're not going to be able to help you. And that person would leave. They would walk out of Municipal Services Building with their funds, and no agreement would be made. We worked hard to make that happen within, I think, the last year or so. So that's relatively new. So the idea that we have had all along, all of these programs that people are not taking advantage of, I just think is really disingenuous. And I think that you need to speak to that.
Yes, I'd be happy to. One of the things that I'll say is, it comes to training and staffing sometimes, and since we had a discussion the other day, I talked to my staff.
So when you say training and staff, that goes back to the other day when we spoke, when I told you that people were still saying to us, and we have staff that have walked folks over to revenue. So we make sure that our constituents are taken care of. We walk them over, and they have been told by the person in revenue that program doesn't exist, or we can't help you, or that's not true. Even when we provided with them the documentation that you provided to us saying that this was a legitimate program being operated by the Revenue Department, and they have been turned away, and that has been as of recent, and I brought it to your attention yet again recently.
You
this
did,
week.
and I thanked you for that, and we've had an open dialogue, and I've been very open with everyone on City Council that whenever you have a situation like that and you're aware of it of a constituent, to please contact me personally, and I will look into it, as I did based on that conversation. And we did find that there were gaps, that there were people who were unaware of some of the changes. As a way of volume, so far this fiscal year, our Taxpayer Services Unit has talked to over 200,000 taxpayers on the phone and have had over 60,000 taxpayers come into the office. So with that kind of volume, there will be exceptions and mistakes. And it's our job as the revenue, I'm not trying to shirk responsibility, that's my responsibility to make sure that my team knows what the available programs are and delivers them. And so we're revisiting the protocol because it's a protocol that you suggested, and I agree, was a great idea, that when a taxpayer walks into our office based on a few simple questions, our tax rep should ask, if they come in with a delinquency and they're looking for a payment agreement, what type of tax? And some of this we can just decipher by them handing us a bill and looking and see. If it's property taxes, our script is for them to ask, is it owner-occupied or is it non-owner-occupied? If they say owner-occupied, then we know we're dealing with UPA. They're supposed to pull out a one-page sheet, which I shared with your office, and give that to them. So, because you talked about transparency, we want that taxpayer to know what's available to them, and then the rep is supposed to discuss the options. And it's a similar process for business taxes and a similar process for non-owner occupieds. But we did realize, based on your conversation, that some people were still holding to the old standards, which were higher down payments and shorter payment agreement terms. So we've reinforced with the staff, and there'll be a series of training over the next several months to make sure that we have all the proper scripting and all the proper training in place. And one of the things that, I want to state is I think that's the proper approach, that, we want to customize the relief to the taxpayer, so they get the relief that is appropriate for their tax situation. And in situations where that relief is not adequate, we want an escalation policy, so they escalate that up within the department, and we can look at it on a case-by-case basis. And in situations where that process does not work, then, we encourage them to go to your office. And I'm open to a conversation with you personally. I mean, you all know that, I don't hesitate to come and sit down and hear whatever your concerns are and do whatever I can to assist. And, we've made it clear that, the charge of the Department of Revenue is to collect revenues. But we're not doing that with a blind eye to the citizens. We have worked with you to put really substantial safety nets in place. In terms of UPA, there's not a comparable safety net in place anywhere in the country. We are on the forefront, and we want to continue that progress and work with council to continue that. We want to be, we want people to contact us because they hear about our programs and want to replicate them. And we're not talking about water today, but one of the programs that we've put together is TAP, an affordability program for water. And our deputy commissioner was invited now once or maybe twice, but definitely this past year, to speak in a national conference about that, because we are on the forefront of water affordability, on the forefront of the nation. So we want to continue that progress. We don't want anything to set that back, and it's our belief that an amnesty program will undermine that progress.
Well, obviously, I strongly disagree, but one other question really quickly, and that is in terms of the types of businesses that would benefit. And so I know that there was a question about stop and goes or nuisance businesses, the parking business, and there was another type of business that would benefit. And one of the things that I want to be clear on is that the focus of this bill is on the people in the neighborhoods, the small businesses that are doing the right things, the people who have been holding down our communities, who are losing their homes, the folks who have just insurmountable debt that they can't get from out under because our interest and our penalties are just too doggone high. And so these are the folks that we are working hard to try to address. I don't think that anybody, well, I'll say, I know Councilwoman Blackwell has done considerable work on addressing nuisance businesses. We've worked hard on addressing nuisance businesses as well. At no point do we ever want them to be able to take advantage or to game the system. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that grandmom is able to save her house, that folks who are working really hard and trying to do right by the city of Philadelphia, that they have every opportunity and every assistance from the city of Philadelphia that they can get, the same way that someone with a 10-year tax abatement does. And the interesting thing is that when it comes to what we're able to do versus what we're not able to do. If we're not able to address the 44% you said that are outside of the city of Philadelphia, if we're not able to address that with some sort of amendment, it's amazing to me that when it comes to other things that the city of Philadelphia wants to do, that we're able to figure out a way, whether it's legal, whether it's illegal, when it comes to things like safe injection sites. That's something that they want in the neighborhood that they're willing to fight for. They're willing to fight for safe injection sites, the city of Philadelphia. When it comes to being a sanctuary city, which I fully support, we're willing to fight for that. But we're not willing to fight for the people who have been in our neighborhoods for a very long time, trying to maintain their houses and trying to maintain their communities, and that's just a shame. I'm just, we have a lot of people who talk about putting people first, but, that's not what this is, clearly. When you're not talking about looking out for the moms and the grandmoms in the neighborhood, when you're not looking out for them, you're not putting people first. Thank you.
Councilman Greenlee, you're next.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, folks. Just a few questions that some have been raised already, so I won't repeat. But, Commissioner, one of the things you say a couple times here, what the cost of the program could be, and it's obviously a pretty wide difference there, $6 million to $110 million. How are you basing those figures? Or Marissa, you're the expert on this? Okay.
Hi, I'm Marissa Waxman, First Deputy Revenue Commissioner. So the way we came up with the projections for the impact of this program, sort of a best case scenario, it would have a negative impact of $6 million. Worst case scenario, up to a negative $110 million impact on the city and school district through fiscal year 2024. Is what we did is we looked at the 2010 tax amnesty and evaluated sort of what was the same, what was different. Unfortunately, our 35-plus-year-old IT system was the same. A lot of the laws are the same. So a lot of the operational constraints were the same. When we were comparing what happened then to now, what is a tremendous difference is the current outstanding receivable. Due to a lot of the collection improvements in place since 2013, there's been a real shrinking in how much is out there that could be collected. And so what we did was we looked at, in 2010, there was about $532 million that could have been paid in an amnesty. Today, under this proposal, there's only about $275 million that could be paid. And we then looked at, okay, so if that's how much, if everything happened, we looked at that difference, that sort of differential. And then we looked at what was the collection rate in 2010, both during the amnesty as well as in the quarters after the amnesty, because during that short period, 54 days last time, there's a spike, but then operationally, as we ramp up to that and then afterwards, there's a dramatic decline. And so we basically followed that trend last time to see what would happen tax by tax, and then followed it this time. In the best case scenario, we were able to match the high collection rate of last time. Last time we collected about 13% of what we could have. And that was because we attribute that to a high investment in the program. Last time we spent a lot of money on outreach and communications. We needed to spend a lot on IT programming, as well as assistance to handle the volume of customer service. In our worst case scenario, which would cost the city and school district $110 million. That's where, if we don't have that investment in the outreach and there's a lower rate of what could be paid, actually gets paid during that amnesty, it's worse, because basically for the 7 quarters following the tax amnesty, we're pretty much shut down on all of our other programs for collection initiatives. And that's sort of independent of whether we collect a little or a lot during that 60-day period. So that's the general theory of how we looked at those collection estimates and how we got the range of a best case scenario is still a loss of $6 million. The worst case scenario is a loss of $110 million.
It's a big difference, obviously. Yeah. Without drowning us in numbers, do we have that information, or could you get it to us? Or
absolutely. We've prepared a fiscal impact analysis.
Folks like me that's not good in math could try to understand it? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're happy to walk you through the assumptions. Yeah.
Okay. And the 2010 law, was that all taxes, or?
There were a couple taxes that were excluded, very few, like the hospital assessment, but it was the ones that are administered by the city.
So in that case, it was pretty similar to this
Yeah, pretty
bill.
analogous.
Okay. The issue was raised about agreements. Commissioner, is that those rules or regulations that you referred to, that you want all your people to know about, were they something that was codified, or are they your regulations, or?
There are regulations.
Your regulations, they're not
they're,
laws.
they're actually not even in the regulations. They're actually our payment agreement terms that we have and that we use with our staff. They're guidelines
Okay.
that we use. And-
Could we, because in fairness to what the sponsor said, I have heard, and for the record, when I've come to you, you've always tried to work stuff out, but I have heard the complaint that people go over there, and because they don't have enough of a down payment, they're basically told, well, there's nothing we can do for you. And that is probably the biggest concern and maybe the biggest reason why that,
Yeah.
to entertain a amnesty. So if there are regulate or whatever word you
Yeah,
want to use,
yeah,
I think we'd like to see them so we know
can share
how,
those.
because look, we know we could come to you, but a lot of people that are turned away, in fairness, don't come to us. They just go away, and then all of a sudden I'll answer the question, please. We just want to be able to see, what those regulations are that everybody can operate under
Yes.
if it's transmitted
We'll
correctly.
get those to you.
Okay. There was one other thing. And Mr. Monson, on the school district, I don't know if you can individually break down for us, I mean, not now, but if you could give it to us, like that breakdown of sort of what Ms. Waxman said, particularly geared towards the school district. It would.
In terms of an annual impact? Or
Yeah, right,
Rather
right.
than just the 5-year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Right.
I'll provide that.
Just so
to the
we
chair.
kind of have all the facts that we could, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it. I think that's, I think, and has there ever been on this bill, a legal opinion either put forward or asked for from the solicitor's office? As far as like issues like uniformity that was raised, anything like that?
On the uniformity
Yeah.
issue, I don't think there's a formal opinion
Okay.
on that.
Okay, all right. All right.
Or at least I haven't seen a formal opinion on
Pardon
that.
me? I'm sorry.
At least I haven't seen a formal opinion on
Okay,
that. There
all
could
right. I
have
was
been
just-
something that I haven't seen.
I mean, I thought the same thing when I heard, and I understand the concern of people from outside the city being able to, but I thought, as much as I personally would like to see it just to Philadelphians, I do think that might be in my non-legal world here, a problem with uniformity. I thought the same thing as the councilwoman thought. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilman Henon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is very informative, getting the facts out there. I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting what members are discussing. And I remember, and I'm glad that, our colleague and then leader of the Philadelphia delegation in the State House, Sherelle Parker, recalls some of the legislation that we had to work kind of coterminous, to try to accomplish what we needed as a city, as the school district was facing deficits, trying all of the options. As she gives scenarios, we had to give options to the state to try to help support, because I know, in our first time, and I know Councilwoman Bass, myself, there were 6 new freshmen that came in at the same time. And one of the first things that we did was drop 6 resolutions to deal with, how do we deal with our tax delinquency in the city of Philadelphia. And, we weren't citing necessarily everything new, but we had some new ways of looking at it. And it really did make some priorities, I think, in refocusing the efforts on our tax delinquency and the efforts to collect on it. And I'm recalling some of the things that Councilwoman Parker was talking about with the State House to help complement some of that, such as leaning properties on personal property and assets for people, those 44% who were outside of the city of Philadelphia, while they're destroying the neighborhood and the blocks inside the city of Philadelphia, in which I receive calls on every single day. Out-of-town business folks, all right, who are taking profit over people at the expense of the communities and neighborhoods, destroying our properties. We have done like definite data showing GIS mapping that shows that if you have problem properties such as slumlords, absentee landlords who are gaming the system, and it shows here that it's 44% of the people who are gaming the system through some sort of programs and trying to find their way out. All right, when you're tax delinquent and you have violations and you are don't have a housing inspection license or any kind of business license, it drops the property value in that neighborhood in 6 blocks by 20%. I have factual information on that. We've done that as we were leading up to some of our programs and tax delinquencies. And when we came in, and I'm not going to be exact about it. I think in 2012 our tax delinquency was, they were at least being talked about was like $1 billion with penalties and interest, all right? Principal penalties and interest, $1 billion. I'm hearing in this budget, all right, we have made significant efforts, all right, to reduce the amount of delinquencies out there. Now, we need to keep pushing because we keep creating tools, all right, like going after people's assets and properties that are outside the city and preying on the less fortunate in any neighborhood that they select, all right, destroying our property values. And who has to make it up? All right, people who are paying property taxes. And I am not raising property taxes. And I'm going to get to Yuri in a minute on school district revenues. All right, but so we, in 2012, was about $1 billion here, all right, with principal only is about, would you say, roughly 275 million, 300 million? And with interest and penalties, you double it, right? So if we are taking off of when we started and you do it, we're making hurdles in efforts in getting the tools through sequestration, putting people in payment plans, and investing in payment. Payment plans cost money, and we're paying for it. Citizens of Philadelphia who are paying their taxes and not robbing the city of taxes, we're paying for these programs. We don't just create a program. All right, if Rob DeBoe, finance director, says, hey man, every good idea has a cost. So what is your good idea and how much is it going to cost and what kind of rate of return is it going to be? These programs are saving people's homes. These programs are putting people in payment plans so they can save the small businesses with 100% school district taxes like liquor by the drink and like amusement taxes, like use and occupancy taxes. So to jump on and also real estate taxes. All right, you mentioned 96.1% collection of real estate taxes. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. All right, I think in 2012 we may have been like 89%. 89%. And I'm just going off of the top of my head, just as everybody's talking about all the things and the efforts that we have made, 89% to 96.1%. That's incredible. That is the city working for you. That is programs that are there to protect people as we try to fix out a system that was very complicated and, quite frankly, a little broken. And we have made strides and efforts to do so. Mr. Munson, if I can, on the school district, you had mentioned, we all know that we do have this school facilities report that's out there that shows on the high end. Now, I mean, it's an extreme high end, about $5 billion or, $4-point-something billion to fix, the schools and the environmental and health and safety of our schools. I mean, we have some significant investments that we need to make in our school district. And yes, for a change, right, we do have a little surplus, thank God. And I'd like to think that it's the efforts that everybody's been working together and the collections and the commitments. I know my office has called over to the revenue department, and there's a policy, there's a schedule, and there's a commitment to try to get people in programs, all right, that's based on. And I believe that with that kind of investment, you had mentioned that, for our schools and in just the facility structures, not maintaining a nurse in every school, not maintaining a counselor in every school, notwithstanding, having enough teachers and assistants so our kids are being taught, and when, we need school police and making sure that we have the safety and a good learning environment. You had mentioned $750 million in bonds over the 5-year plan, or every other year doing $250 million. And the obligation is what a year? $6 million to meet those bonds?
I mean, it builds our...
Or the now, obligations are serious, right? They're actual obligations.
Correct.
It's like our pensions, right? We have unfunded, we're obligated
It's actually,
to pay.
I would argue it's even more so than the pensions, because it's an obligation of the bondholders. We have to pay it.
Because we do have the MM.
And because the way the school district sets up its payment plan, we actually have it go out. Money actually goes to set aside for the bondholders before it even gets to us for what we can spend on the schools.
So if we don't meet those obligations, what other revenue sources, all right, is there to meet those, to
For the
make
bond
those
obligations,
payments?
it's actually the opposite. We don't even get to meet our operating obligation. We don't get them, most of the revenues that come in, particularly the ones that are collected for us by the city, actually go to a trustee first, where they take off they basically calculate in advance what a day's worth we have to set aside for the bonds each day, and then whatever's left then comes to the school district. So we don't get it first. So we get what's ever left after the bondholders are made whole for that day's value of bond repayments. So the bondholders get paid, or the money set aside for the bondholders, and actually several months in advance it's in place for them, even before the money comes to us. So they would get it even before if we did not have the money to do the types of things you mentioned, teachers, counselors, school supplies, et cetera.
We would have to raise real estate taxes.
We would have to come up with some
We would have
alternative for
We would
resources.
have to raise real estate
Yes.
taxes. And I don't think this council, all right, is in the mindset to raise real estate taxes anytime soon. We haven't in the past couple of years because I think we've been increasing our collections. And I, for one, am not interested in raising real estate taxes anytime soon, as in this year. But I mean, they are the more predictable sources of revenue to pay for shortfalls, for obligations for these bonds, and a $750 million investment that would take a hit while people gain the system, in my opinion. Lastly, we talk about revenues not being collected, or we talk about delinquencies. We're talking about 10-year tax abatement, and that conversation is going to continue. There's a lot of several legislation bills that were put forth to deal with that, and that's always going to be an interesting conversation. With that being said, the underground economy, people who aren't paying taxes at all, people who are skirting the system, who are unaccountable for it, there's tens of millions of dollars out there that are not being reported, they're not being paid, there's no wage tax, payroll ID number for them, they're not paying any kind of school tax, all right, but yet, when there's a shortfall, the people who are paying taxes, who can't be paying taxes, who are put in payment plans, are footing the bills for everybody else, and there's people paying cash. So I suggest that as we look forward, as we move forward, we kind of like reprioritizing and going after people who are that sector of the entire economy that lives in this box. All right, you have the economy, all right, and in the economy, all right, the underground is a part of it, and the underground is not paying taxes. Any and all the above that's listed on any kind of exemption or amnesty or any kind of thing, all right, they are not paying any of it. And that's tens of millions of dollars. That will pay for obligations, that will pay for nurses, that will pay, all right, for legal to go out and lien the out-of-town landlords and businesses who are skirting the systems and making us pay why they can go on fishing trips, all right, or go on their boat in Florida, all right, in their second or third house. So I would hope that as we move forward, for whatever happens on anything, or that we continue on the path, continue to make sure that whoever is in need of saving their house gets into a program, all right, whoever is about to lose their business has a conversation, gets into a program, and stays here in the city of Philadelphia, raises their family here in Philadelphia, makes their money here in the city of Philadelphia, and spends their money here in the city of Philadelphia, because it all is connected together. And I know Councilman Greenlee mentioned something about payment schedules. So I think we did codify something when it comes to payment schedules on tax payments as a body. At least since I've been in here, we did put forth, there was some legislation working with the administration. I don't even know if it started with the administration or not. It may have been in previous, but we did codify payment schedules.
UPA
All right.
is codified.
It's
Yes,
codified,
yeah.
all right? And it's all- and
So
it-
some of the,
and
so,
that's-
you know, I may have misspoken that
And the
UPA is, but like the business tax is not codified, and that gives us
Right. So that's
flexibility
the
to
difference
adjust
of-
those
of
with
the
the times.
uniformity stuff, right?
Yes,
Right,
and-
okay, but we do have codified schedules that we are investing in and making sure that people who don't have the means, it is reflected to and encourage that people get in a plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bass? Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I will say that I respect the three of you and your opinions. I respect Rob DeVoe's opinion, and I'm hearing that all four of you are not in favor of this.
Correct.
Is that correct? And so I have a few questions I just wanted to ask. I was looking over the numbers. It looks to me like real estate taxes principal is about $158 million. That's delinquent as of February 28th of 19.
Yep.
And total delinquency, including interest and penalties of all taxes, are $450 million.
Yes, I think that's about right. I don't have the numbers in
The
front of me.
real
but
estate
that sounds
taxes
right.
represent about 56 to 57% of the total delinquency. Would this bill waive the interest and penalties on the business income and receipts taxes, which are about $32 million?
Yes, it would.
And would it also, on the wage taxes that weren't remitted to the city of about $14 million, would it also waive those interest and penalties?
It would.
And so in essence, what I'm looking at, it would waive about 80 million of interest and penalties on business taxes.
It sounds right based on the numbers you just presented.
Okay. And then you're also, just for point of reference, there's commercial trash fees that are $11 million of interest and penalties. They'd be waived also?
I'm not sure if that's included in the legislation. I'd have to look at the legislation to see if that was.
You can let me know. I'm just curious about that.
It's not.
It's not?
It's not
Okay.
part of the legislation.
But in essence, there's 80 million from the core that's going to be waived that are not real estate related. And my other question is, I'm looking at the signs in the back and I see everybody here, by the way, who always wants to save grandma's house. Nobody doesn't want to see a grandma lose their house, okay? Have we worked with the people in the back with the OOP programs? And can we meet with them and try to help them on these issues? I'm seeing the grandma's house that has, I think,
We can.
8,000 principal.
I mean, absolutely. We're committed to doing that. As a matter of fact, I have people in the room that can.
Let's just try to help
can
everybody.
provide
Yeah.
contact information
Right.
that can talk to them.
Right.
And see if there's programs that we have that could assist them. Because sometimes I think it's, a council person stated that, you know, when we talk about kind of the barriers, one of the barriers is just them getting to us.
Right.
You know, and getting to the right person. So we've been really doing a lot of effort to reduce that barrier. And I talked about our outreach effort with over 200 events last year. And so that's really something we have to try. We're trying to get out in the community to get where the people are, because we realize that there's sometimes just a stigma of coming into the department. You know, one of the other things that, you know, not to give ourselves a pat on the back, but to show the progress, and the progress that I think is a result of the cooperation with council and the benefit of hearing what happens with your constituents, is we started over a year ago, about 18 months ago, surveying everyone who comes into the office and scoring ourselves and taxpayer services. And I actually look at those surveys every week. My deputies look at those surveys every week. We have a continuous improvement unit that works to improve processes that are causing people to have problems dealing with the department. And we're seeing progress. We're seeing more compliments than we did before. We're seeing our score rise. There's a lot of room there, and as the Councilwoman pointed out, and it was a great point to our conversation this week, is there's room for improvement, but we're dedicated to that improvement. We're going to continue to look at those surveys. We're going to continue to talk to council, and we're going to continue to do outreach to try to reach every citizen who really wants to come in and pay their taxes. And this whole conversation started in the budget hearing, I think 2 years ago, when the Councilwoman pointed out that the Revenue Department was turning people away, that were coming in with checks, and because that down payment wasn't enough. And I stated that that was something that we did not want to happen and something we were committed to avoiding. And we want to continue to work so that that is not the case.
And thank you. I have two other questions. I just want to make sure I understand, and for the benefit of everybody, the owner-occupied payment agreement, UPA, there's 4 tiers in the program.
5 now.
5, okay, okay. On the 4th tier of the paperwork that I have, it says if somebody makes $24,000 or less, we waive all interest and penalties, and they pay $25 a month. Is that correct?
Yes, they can have a payment as low as $25 a month. The goal there is
So
to
for
make...
$24,000 of income or less, $25 a month.
And all interest and penalty is waived at the point that the principal is paid off. And we also have a 5th level. I don't have the income number in front of me, but someone who is in a Tier 5 UPA has to make no payment.
Okay.
They can, and their house will not be subject to any enforcement activities.
So
there's
level
no-
5 is you pay nothing.
You pay nothing, and we will take no enforcement action on that property.
Let me just ask a few more questions on this. Tier 3, so just from my own understanding. Tier 3, it says the income on the upper level is about $42,000 a year. And by the way, just so the Pew report, I think the average income in the city is $41,000, $41,500. So we have programs going above the median average income of this city, basically. $42,000, the household pays 8% of its income towards taxes. Is that pretty much? And it also says 50% of the accrued interest and 100% of the penalties are waived.
That's correct, and in addition to those payment provisions, there's a hardship provision where a taxpayer can come in and show their expenses and pay less if it's shown that their income, and that really applies to someone who may come in at that 8%, but when they come in and show us their bills and they have high medical bills and high costs, there's not that level of income available for them to pay. So we'll set a lower, we could actually put them into a lower tier, a Tier 4 or a Tier 5 to keep them in their home. And as I said earlier, there's no jurisdiction in the country that has a safety net, like this. It really protects homeowners.
You have another tier called Tier 2. And it says in Tier 2, the income's $57,000 a year. And you can pay 10% of your income and get 100% of the penalties waived. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So the average income in the city is 42, and we have programs going up to $57,000. And then it says Tier 1, when I'm not clear about Tier 1. It says if you're ineligible, which maybe people are, I just want to make sure they're aware of this, and they're over $57,000 a year, there are payment agreements available for them also.
So they're in UPA. So if they come in, we'll try to get them into a affordable payment agreement. But at that income level, there's more discretion on the department, and we'll actually look at their income, we'll look at their expenses, and we'll get them into a payment agreement. And again, they're protected from any enforcement action. So we've said that homeowners are really covered by this, and this UPA, especially in a Tier 4 or 5 UPA, is preferable to amnesty because amnesty requires a payment, a lump sum payment, or a payout within 1 year.
Maybe the problem is that a lot of people still are not that familiar with the benefits of these programs.
I think that is accurate, and that's one of the challenges, and that's why we're ramping up outreach and have money in the budget and keep increasing our outreach efforts. It's one of the things that we're dedicated to and really rely on partnerships with yourselves, faith-based initiatives, community because they give us opportunities to get out there into the community and be approachable. Taxpayers don't have to come into the MSB and go through, the concourse there. They can come out, and we have people out at all of these events.
Two last questions. There was I'm not going to mention the name. About a year ago, I met with an investor who owned, I want to say, 69 investment properties. And I actually called him into my office and met with him. And they were all delinquent. All 69 properties. And he's basically using the city as a bank and not paying his taxes to buy more real estate. I said to the guy, why don't you sell 7 or 8 properties and pay off all of the debt you owe us? Would this apply to that person? Would all the interest and penalties be waived on that?
In amnesty? Yes. A person like that would be able to participate in amnesty and get complete relief of interest and penalties.
And so I would assume that this is a major problem for you all right now, because everyone who's in negotiations is probably a halt at this point.
That's correct. It presents a problem to our ongoing negotiations right now, because people will look to see and maybe consider waiting to see if they can get a better deal under amnesty.
I have one last request, only because I want to be able to sleep tonight. Make sure you help the grandma back there with her house, okay? I want to make sure we help them. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you. Okay, so if you estimate, in your analysis, an amnesty program for the current fiscal year would yield $176 million. That's based on your projection. Is that correct?
So what we looked at is we're projecting anyway. So we anticipate this year that we would be collecting $164.8 million. An amnesty for FY19 for that period would have that one-time sharp spike. In the best case scenario, that would result in $176 million, so a $12 million increase. In the worst case scenario, it's a $4 million increase, and that's before. And then in the out years, compared to the no amnesty scenario, we have decreases. So through FY 2024, we have from that the bumps in the amnesty scenarios, and then later the declines, and that's how we net out to the negative impact of -6 million to up to -110 million over through FY 2024 on the city and the school district.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Would any, out of year revenue shortfalls, because I know that there's a projection that over the years there would be a shortage of revenue to be collected. So wouldn't that be the result of the fact that we're collecting those delinquencies now through the amnesty program?
So part of it is the time shifting, things that would get collected during the amnesty that might have been collected later. But a lot of that is reflected in the fact that it would take us about 7 quarters to get back to where we were because of needing to sort of ramp down the other enforcement actions and the time to get those ramped back up. And so that's when we looked at, in the prior amnesty, how long it took to get to the prior collection rates.
Okay. Question on that 44% that we keep talking about, the non-Philadelphia residents. How much of the current delinquency is held by that population?
We'll be able to get back to you with that. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, but you stated before it was 44% in the last amnesty
In the
program.
2011 amnesty, when we looked at what was written off, so how much of the penalty and the 50% interest was written off, 44% of the total amount that got erased went to taxpayers who are outside the city of Philadelphia.
Okay. So you don't have those figures?
The splits right now, I have, no, I don't have them with me, but we can get those. We can forward them to the chair.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from any of my colleagues for panel 1? All right, panel 2. There are 5 people. We will ask 3 to sit at the table and 2 in the black chairs.
Madam President, I
Madam Chair, I do it before they leave.
Councilwoman Parker has a question, please, before you go. Mr. Breslin and...
I apologize. This was one that was on my binder, and I did not make a note of it. And I just want to make sure that this is correct. Would you say that relative to the people within the last year who have needed assistance, and I just want to find out whether or not my data is accurate. And if you don't have the number and you want to come back and report it, that's fine too. But is it true that the Revenue Department has taken 200,000 calls and 60,000 walk-ins relative to Philadelphia residents who needed assistance in gaining access to a payment arrangement or some kind of educational opportunity about what their options were?
Yes, that's all at our municipal services building.
So that's everything that happens at the MSB?
That's the walk-ins, that's the calls there. We also have people that walking in at the satellite offices. That's not captured in those numbers. I only grabbed the easiest numbers at hand were the numbers, but that's at MSB. We also have the North Philly satellite, and we have the Northeast Philly satellite, and then we have the people who engage our communications people at those 200 events I referenced. So that's here at MSB, and the number is actually higher than that, and that's so far for this fiscal year.
So that wouldn't include, for example, annually, I hold a series of budget briefings and town hall meetings throughout the 9th Councilmatic District. We just concluded the second one. We always have revenue there and someone on hand to assist our constituents in the neighborhood so that they can gain access. And you're telling me your staff who comes out to their meetings, they're not sort of saying, oh, we talked to 50 people today and we gave 50 seniors information about tax freeze, about UPA, about this, that. That number is not included in this.
That's correct.
Okay, in addition to that, because listen, Philadelphia gets some things wrong. And when we get it wrong on the record, everybody in the world lets us know that we get it wrong. But if the data that you just reported to us about a 96% collections rate, when I think about 2013 and how we were getting lambasted in Harrisburg about how defunct is Philadelphia. They can't even collect their own delinquent property taxes. And we're now at 96% for real estate and over 90% for other taxes. It is to be commended. And on the record right now, Commissioner, I wanted to say to you that I apologize because apparently in 2017, other members of this body recognized that revenue had been doing a great job with the collection of non-real estate taxes, because this council passed resolution number 170760, recognizing the Philadelphia Department of Revenue for instituting new payment plan options for non-real estate taxes. I apologize for not having the foresight to either offer it and or sponsor it, but that credit has to go to council members Henon, Sanchez, O, Johnson, Jones, Taubenberger, Squilla, and Bass, and at least we recognized you on the record for doing something right, because when you're doing wrong, we're going to acknowledge that too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from Omar Mohammed, Marie Ansari, Jihad Mohammed, Suwaitwe Dien Mohammed, and William Gray. These are all constituents. Thank you for coming. And feel free to give your name, identify yourself before you make your statements. Thank you very much. In any order.
Yes, I'm conveying this testimony for Omar Mohammed.
Okay.
In the light of the city approving Omar Mohammed. Shadid Abdul Kareem. In the light of the city council approving a 10-year tax abatement in a city where the money is needed for the poor and it is needed to support our schools, now people are living in poverty. They have to go to soup kitchens to get food. I live near Strawberry Mansion, the high school that is supposed to close soon. The story in the newspaper said that there are only 169 enrolled in the school. I have lived here a long time. My grandparents bought this house, and now I wonder why are the schools closing and our children are not here. People say that they move because they cannot live in their houses because it costs too much. With the upkeep and the bills and the tax abatements, it is too much. People who are poor on fixed incomes need help. This bill will help make us figure out a way to make it. People need help. I support this amnesty bill as one thing that will help.
Thank you.
My name is Jerome Sungari, and I'm reading the testimony of Jihad Muhammad. Recently, I have been over assessed for my property taxes. My taxes are now 5 times what they had been previously. There are new homes being built in my neighborhood, and the new owners don't have to pay any taxes for the next 10 years. My home is older, and I'm 72 years old, and I've lived in my house for 56 years. I'm on a fixed income and live alone. It's not fair that I'm being overtaxed at this age and on a fixed income and have no help because I live alone. I may be squeezed out of my home. I receive letters every day of people trying to buy my home. One guy offered me $20,000. I can't get an apartment for $20,000. We elected our city officials to protect us, seniors, and our homes. Please, we are counting on you for help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Sutraddin Muhammad, General President of the Muslim League of Voters of the Delaware Valley. And so I'm here to testify this afternoon in this city. I mean, first of all, we feel so embarrassed and ashamed that we have to come down here and beg people that we pay a good salary to represent us and to hold the fort down, and they don't do that. Philadelphia, this is not stuff that we're making up. It's all in the front page of national newspapers, all on the front page, all in the news. Philadelphia is the poorest, biggest city in the country. 45% of the people are living below the poverty level, okay? 4 murders are averaged in this city every night, and all we hear from the police commissioner is no suspects, no motive. Sheriff sales amount to $169 million a year, taking people's homes at record numbers through gentrification and everything else. One of the things that we look at when we sit here and counsel people propose to have a 20-year tax abatement, 20-year tax abatement for people who can afford a home $400,000, $500,000, yet you got a person that lived in the house for 50 years, back on their taxes $6,000, and here come the revenue department knocking on their door talking about we need that house, we're going to take it to the sheriff's sale. 50% of the people in this city are renters. We're looking at a building that's going up now, rent is $4,000 a month in this city. And I'm just really, for us to come down and have to beg people, we pay you a real good salary. I mean, you're taking home $150,000, $180,000 a year. And so you know what it is to live in a household that's bringing in $250,000 a year when most of our people are sitting in households that's bringing in $20,000 a year. And here we go talking about there's no amnesty, and these people sit up here talking about, no, we need the money for the schools. We don't have no schools. Strawberry Mansion, there's 169 students in that school, just reported on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer. That school was built for 1,800 people. They did it just like they did the prison. They squeezed 3,100 people in that school in its heyday. It went from 3,100 people, now it has 169 people in that school. I give it 2 more years, that school will be closed. This is the disgrace how you all treat us. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to be down here every Thursday raising heck. Damn, I'm not going to let you get no sleep. I'm going to come to your office. I'm going to come to your block. I'm going to come down here in city council. I'm going to be down here every Thursday. And you're not going to be able to breathe, just like we can't breathe. Make it a 10-year, and a guy proposed something, I'll give him a 15-year, 20-year tax abatement. He's a daggone big real estate developer. So all he want to do is continue to take people homes himself. This stuff is not fair how y'all been treating us, Councilwoman Parker. It's not fair at all, and I don't understand that. Yeah, I mean, how you don't feel the need to help your own people. People, you're talking about 45% of people living below the poverty level. Up in your district up there, I know people up there personally, they sleep in cars, they get up in the morning, don't even take a bath, go to the corner store, which we don't own, buy a white t-shirt, put it on, and they dress for the day. It's a disgrace. They sleeping in their cars. It's a prayer that I make every day, 10 times a day. And I ask God to bless all the children and families around the world who have no food to eat and no place to live. This don't make no sense that we got to come down here and beg y'all. You making all that good money. You're sitting up there, everybody all happy. What about us? I'm telling you right now, we're not going to let you get no sleep. You're not going to keep taking advantage of us. And if this is on record, I'll go on record and tell you this right now. Come and try to take my house. Let somebody come and knock on my door and try to take my house. And I'm telling you right now, no. Nobody taking my house, man. Nobody taking my grandmother's house. And this is a disgrace. There's 26 cranes in this city right now as we having this hearing. And ain't no people of color working. You know what it is. 1% of the contracts, 5% of the jobs. You got one black guy on the job holding a flag. This don't make no sense. Every corner out there, there's construction going on every corner in this city. Now, this don't, now, come on now. Our children are suffering. They don't have no schools. They're going to jail. Jail and death looks good to our kids right now. And you all supposed to be mothers and parents? How can you live like that? Having a child walk around the street, living and sleeping in a car. On the front page of the Daily News, they had a white woman on the front of the Daily News, and she asked the question, when do we eat? That's what our kids say out there when they're on the hustle on the corner selling drugs. I'm just trying to eat. I'm just trying to get mine. And they still not getting theirs. This stuff don't make no sense. I'm just telling you. We're not going to allow this stuff to continue to go on. If you all think that you're going to just keep on smacking us around, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to say this to you. I think today, by us coming down here testifying, I think we're doing you all a very, very good favor. Because if you just keep on pushing people up against the wall, 2019 represents 400 years of slavery. 2019 represents 400 years of slavery. And if you just keep pushing people up against the wall, taking our homes, taking our jobs, taking our money, taking our cars, where they ain't booting no cars in no other part of the city like they are in poor people's neighborhoods. Office of Property Assessment said that they messed up. The mayor of Jim Kenney said Office of Property Assessment messed up. They got it wrong. Council President Darrell Clark said Office of Property Assessment messed up. They got it wrong. But yet and still, nobody stopped the sheriff's sales. The mayor went as far as firing the guy at the Office of Property Assessment, admitting that he got it wrong. And Councilman Henon says that if you don't have license and your stuff is not right, that the property value goes down 20% in people's neighborhoods. Well, Office of Property Assessment didn't see it like that. Our property values went up 500 times. Yeah, I was paying a property that I have $500 a year, now I'm paying $5,000 a year. No renovations on it. Neighborhoods still look like dirt. Neighborhoods still look like trash. You all think we don't know what you're up to? You trying to kick black people out this city. That's what you're trying to do. We ain't stupid. You're trying to kick black people out this city. And if you think we're going to allow you, because we know in 2 more years, we won't even be in this city. You took every neighborhood we had, neighborhoods that people didn't want to live in. South Street, Cecil B. Moore, K&A. Now you're down there putting in a safe drug house. You ran them people out there with a bulldozer from underneath of that train station. Because that land is so valuable now. We know what you up to. And I'm telling you right now, think it's going down, not on my watch. Not on my watch. I'm telling you right now, not on my watch. And if you don't think you don't know, you better ask somebody. I'm telling you right now, it's not going down like that. You done took enough from us, enslaved us for 400 years, raped our great-grandmothers, took our homes, took our cars, took our jobs. You think you're going to take one more thing from us? Take something else from us and see what happens. I'm telling you right now, modern-day slavery is over. And you should be ashamed of yourself, Councilwoman Parker. You should be ashamed of yourself. I come here and watch you every week. You never fight for black people. You should be a damn shame of yourself. I'm surprised that you come up to the mosque with us and smile in our face like you are a friend. I wouldn't do that if I was you. I wouldn't do that if I was you. Look, the curtain is pulled off of this. And you all can smirk, you can laugh, you can think it's a joke. I'm telling you right now, you're not taking anything else from us. You're not taking nothing else from us. And if you don't know how to do your job down here, take your ass home. That's the bottom line on it. The party is over. You don't know how to do your job down here because we know what you all are doing down here. We know what you all are doing down here. And don't make us expose it. Don't make us expose it. Now, we want a breather. We want you to give us some breathing room. That's what we want. You're going to give those rich people a 10-year tax abatement, and Councilman Don talking about give them 20 years. I'm not going back on the plantation for nobody. I'm telling you that right now. Slavery is over. Slavery is over. I'm not going back on the plantation for nobody. And ain't nobody going to take my house. Now, I'm telling you, we sat here, we listened to this stuff over here for 3 and 4 hours, lying. That guy at the boat sit over here just lying like that, talking about how the city going to lose money. Number one, interest and penalty and other is not even included in the budget. You think we don't know that? And then number two, 6 years, that money is considered uncollectible. We know that. That money is considered uncollectible after 6 years. You're trying to collect taxes for 30, 40 years ago. That's right. We know what this thing is. You're not going to keep on doing that to us. You're not going to keep on doing that to us, and I'm serious. I'm telling you that right now. Now, we came down here. We was trying to be nice. We had prayer over there. It's the first time it ever been held in City Hall. We made history today. First time it's been held in City Hall, the Muslim prayer. We had Juma prayer here because you all tried to have the hearing on a Friday at 2 o'clock when you know we wouldn't be available. So we had the Juma right across in the caucus room, ate our lunch, and walked over here to hear all these lies after we just got finished praying. Don't do that to us. Please, don't do that. Don't do that to us. Please don't. We down here, I feel bad already that we got all our people down here and we got to beg you for something. Every time we go to a council person and we ask the council person for something, they act like they doing us a favor. That's what we pay you for. You all get paid real good money for that. And you can't even help the poor people. We pay you for that. You're not doing us no favor. This ain't no slick deals or nothing. You're getting paid for this. You're taking home good money. And I'm pleading with you all today. We need this bill. Our homes depend on it. Our grandmothers depend on it. And you're talking about the schools. We don't need no schools if our children don't even have no home to come to after they get out of school. Yeah, hell, and Councilwoman Gim up there bragging, talking about the Glen Mills is closed. I had to check. I said, Glen Mills is closed. It ain't like they went to college. You act like they graduated from Glen Mills and went to college. No, they went to your new prison in Philadelphia. It ain't like they went to college or nothing. So, I mean, we need to stop playing these games. Because I'm telling you right now, we not the ones for this. I'm just being honest with you. We not, it's not that kind of party no more. Slavery is over. Slavery is over. Slavery is over. And we will no longer be oppressed because we are taught that oppression is worse than slaughter. If you're going to oppress me, then you might as well just kill me now. You might as well just kill me now. And I ain't got nothing to lose. I ain't got nothing to lose. And that's all we're saying. So I'm going to make a plea to you all. And we're going to ask you, please, pass this bill out of committee. Because when the bill was introduced by our great Councilwoman Cindy Bass. We got 9 co-sponsors. If that don't say something to you, that 9 people out of 17 want to help people, want to help us, and you all can sit up there and think that, I don't care what they say, we're not doing nothing. I don't know what kind of games y'all playing down here, or how y'all keep fighting amongst each other, how y'all keep going at each other, but stop using the common people as collateral damage. Stop using us as collateral damage. Get us out the middle of it. Y'all want to fight, y'all want to play these games, do that on your own time. Stop using the poor people as collateral damage. And I'm telling you right now, they got a voice now if they never had one before. And I'm telling you right now, I don't come by myself. I don't come by myself. I'm letting you know that. We're going to ask you again that we please pray that you all do the right thing, that you get this bill out of committee and allow the council people on the floor to vote for this bill and have a fair vote. That's what I'm asking you. Let it come out of committee and let the council people do the right thing. There's 17 of them. Let them do the right thing and let them have a vote. We had nine votes coming out of a code that co-sponsored the bill. Right now we're up to 11 votes as we counted. People that's going to vote for this amnesty bill. We get one more vote, it makes it veto-proof. Let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing, because it's only that 3-4 people that's holding out, and we know why they're holding out. But if they don't want to do the right thing, next time we come down here, then we got to expose why they're holding out.
Thank you very much. Is Maria Ansari or William Gray here? After that, we have Atiba Kwesi, Salam Muxon, Mike Abdullah, Bilal, Wali Ayub, and Tiffany Green. Are any of those folks here? That is our entire list. If any of you are here, feel free to sit down at the witness table 3 at a time, and the others of you who are here, please sit in the black leather chairs. We will otherwise assume that we have heard all those who wish to testify, and again, we thank all of you for being here. All right, feel free to introduce yourself and begin your testimony in any order.
Testing. Peace and blessings. My name is Imam Salam Muxin, and I see 3 people up there who I know very well. The brave, courageous Councilwoman Cindy Bass for tabling this bill. We really appreciate you. My old friend, Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you.
My family old friend, Sherelle Parker. And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't tell you the truth. And I'm here to say to you, with God's name, the beneficent, the merciful, I come to you today as a native-born Philadelphian in support of a tax amnesty bill, a bill that will give emergency relief to the largest segment of the population of citizens in Philadelphia. In a hospital, when a patient needs emergency help because he's in trauma, the first thing the doctor does is stop the bleeding. Sherelle, did you hear this? Sherelle, the first thing the doctor does in the hospital, in the trauma center, is stop the bleeding, because that patient is in trauma. The next thing I'm looking at, that the patient, not only is he in trauma, he's in economic and mental despair. That's the citizens. That's the segment of the population, the largest, poorest section in the city of Philadelphia. Solomon, the great prophet of Israel, with all the good wisdom and all the good intentions, it is documented that he killed his kingdom because he overtaxed the people. And when I say overtaxed the people, I mean in so many ways. Our government has run out of ideas. They're bankrupt in ideas. So what do? They promote gambling. What do? Promote drugs. What do? Promote casinos where prostitution flourishes. What do? They hire psychiatrists to come up with exotic schemes to get people to buy into games of chances. so that they can lose their money. And you and I know that the government has already stacked the deck against millions to join in a game of chance that they cannot win. This is what our government does. They're on the backs of the people. And as the brother said who lost his life in New York from selling just cigarettes on the corner, I can't breathe. That's the same thing, Sherelle, that the common poor, and the common poor really is not really in your district. You're not in North Philly. You're not in South Philly. You're not in Kensington. So your model is not the model that we're using. Your segment of the population, before you was born, was called Jewtown. You couldn't be up there past 9 o'clock without getting a police escort. And now you have our people in a situation that they are crippled and they're looked at like Thanksgiving Day turkeys by developers from New York, by developers from Washington, who see that they have been struggling to pay their taxes for 5 and 10 years and can't pay them. So they put $800 and they force that property that had been in delinquency for 10 years, for 5 years, to go to sheriff's sale so they can take that property from them. This is what's happening in our neighborhood, Sherelle. In the common poor. Some of us, I look at you, we come from, the African Americans that's up there, meager beginnings financially. Some of you with this $150,000 at least in your jobs is the best you ever looked in your life. You use your power to get your husband a job. You use your power to get your wife a job. Now you got $250,000 coming in your household. You no longer are in the economic conditions of the common poor. The worst thing you can do is find yourself on the wrong side of history. The greatest lie, the one you can tell, is the one you tell to yourself. And as the Bible says, man trouble didn't start until he gained a little knowledge, because he started rationalizing everything. He no longer sees the common dignity and the common bond of his fellow man. What about Beulah May? What about Mattie Pearl? What about Leroy? That's who put you in office. That's who put you and took you out this lottery system of the common poor and gave you a job at 150, 180, 170, and your husband a job, and your wife a job. And now you call it convenient amnesia because you no longer can identify with the conditions. And it is said, and I'm saying this to everybody, particularly to you, Sherelle, your buddy on your side, Bobby Henon, him and Johnny Doc run this city. And they say they run you. And they say that, and this is Quran. Satan threatens you with poverty. And the fact that we know that we didn't have no money, so we come across a union that has been buying this city forever, propped up a mayor and put a pick behind him, covered up his frailties, and I'm ready to put my money behind a bus and chase you wherever you go and let you die like a vampire in the light of the sun. Because you're not going to cross me. I ain't in no fan club. Allah's God. Not you, not him, not Johnny Doc. We got 3 companies right now that's African Americans get ready to lose their contract because Johnny Doc won it. I am sick and tired of Negroes following white folks. Stand up and be a man and look at your model example. It's either Jesus or Muhammad. And what would they do? Don't give me no intellectual masturbation because you got a few degrees. I got one too, from University of Pennsylvania Master Program. But I am sick and tired of seeing our people being exploited and being bought off for a few dollars, for a little bit of power, when you all can work together. It's more, when I was a little boy, I'm older than all of y'all up there. When I was a little boy, this place was lily white. And now you can't even get black folks to go across the street together. If they ain't line dancing, they ain't doing nothing. This is ridiculous. And you gotta find a way because we're going to chase you down no matter where you go. Mr. Fatinelli didn't put you in office. Mr. Greenberg didn't put you in office. And when you come home, you come in our districts. And we will take a bus, we will put speakers on the bus, and wherever you go, it's going to be a war of ideas in a language environment. I pray that God bless you with better days.
Thank you. Who's next?
Peace be unto all of you. My name is Mike Abdullah. I'm actually the assistant imam at Masjid Muhammad. And when the imam says to you, he says, I'm not by myself, right? No, he's not. I definitely have to stand with him always, from the cradle to the grave. And everything that he has said more than enough for me. Imam Salam has said more than enough for me. And what I want to just share with you is maybe a small story. And it's because I had a young brother and sister who actually went to college, got their masters, and they finished and already doing very well right now. So my young brother, he didn't make it that far. Someone killed him on the streets, riding in his car, shot him in his arm, and he died right at the hospital. Now my sister, she's doing very well. The problem of it is when they came out of college, my mother said to me, she said, take them back to the old neighborhood and show them where we came from and how they got what they got. She wanted to know how hard her and my father and my family had struggled to get where they had to get to. And when I went to take them back, there was no house there. There was no block there. I couldn't show them my history. I couldn't tell them about the times when we was killing the rats inside the bathtub and they was hopping out, and how we had to get rid of them during the night. I couldn't show them these things. I couldn't show them when we lived in the neighborhood and it started off with the Jewish families, went to the Hispanic families or the so-called black families, and then we had to all live together. I couldn't show them a lot of things about our history because it was wiped away from either taxes, delinquent property, or entanglement deeds or whatever. They was gone, wiped away. No history. So my uncle told me, and I'm a young boy, he said, we are always mystery, and they always have a history. He said, so that's how it is for us. And when I had to take them back home and said to my mother, Mom, you know, the house is gone, 1542 North 6th Street. I never forgot the address. Letlow School, I'm 64 now. And I never forgot the address, because that's all I had to remember. R.W. Brown's Boys Club, all these different things that I experienced and all the things I wanted to tell them in a family of 10 children. She had 5 girls and 5 boys. All those people now are deceased except for me. They're deceased. And I have no history to show none of my children or none of the ones that are left. They children. Why? Because all those homes got taken through taxes, delinquent property, or entanglement deeds, or just wiped away, period, for somebody else to start their history. You have to look at this and understand that here in Philadelphia, the majority of our history that we have is wiped away because of these words that we use. We sit there and all the time, we make up something new, and we play the number games. But it doesn't affect nobody but us because the majority of the city is Afro-Americans anyway. That's what it affects. It affects the very poor Caucasian, the very poor Hispanics, and it definitely affects the very poor blacks. That's all it affects. So here again, when you talk about these abatements and we give them all these great names, let's say it like it is. I cut the rich guy a break and the poor guy over here, I'm just going to do what I want with him, and he'll pay for your break. So don't you worry about it. Don't worry about it. This is the way life got to go. But I tell you like this, all 10 of them or all 9 of them are gone except for me. I don't have nothing to lose. I'm 64. Actually, I'm on my 6th passport. I travel a lot. So I'm seeing quite a bit, and God has blessed me quite a bit. So when I sit here today, I don't ask people for welfare or nothing. Never had it in my life, because I always had a beans, and God always had a bean to take care of me and my family. So I stand very strong beside Imam Sushadeen, beside my community, my Islamic community, and this is my family. I'm looking at all in the room around me. I can't play that game like he can't play that game. And there's nobody that I'm going back into slavery or anything for. I will not be nobody economical slave, and I would not be nobody fool. I beg you today, and it's strange because I'm not used to even using that word, I beg you, especially when I'm not a minority or at all. I'm the majority in this city. I shouldn't be saying I beg you, but I'm going to say it like this, right? I think that this tax amnesty bill is the best thing possible to bring about some kind of resolution of peace to the city or peace to these people, peace to all of us. So then why fight it? Why even go through all this? It should have been something long done, long past done. Every time I came home, I looked at this city from the crack epidemic, from the heroin epidemic, from all that stuff. I looked at this city and I cried many nights over my people. And my wife asked me, why are you feeling like that? Why are you acting like that? I said, I have seen a whole lot of different communities, a lot of different people, Indonesians, Africans, everything. And nobody lives like us. And the so-called great America. Nobody lives like us. We're in Philadelphia. Anywhere I go in the world, people say, where you from? Philadelphia? They go crazy. And I stand there and look at them saying, you want to come live in Philadelphia? Why? Why? They don't know. If they came here, they would be shocked. And the majority of people come here, they are shocked. It's a filthy place. Filthy place. You go to Singapore and eat off the grounds. You go anywhere in the world and the place is clean. We sit in America with all this so-called money. And again, this thing we're talking about, it doesn't even touch the budget of Philadelphia. $313 million he's sitting on. And we act like that's a problem. One thing I was always told, not to be racist, because that's dealing with somebody's colors and complexion. But it's all right to be prejudiced. And said, what do you mean to be prejudiced? He said, always care about taking care of your own before you take care of somebody else. So if you don't care about your own, and we're so good on the plantation that we got to take care of the master, something is definitely wrong with us. Something definitely have to be turned around or killed off. Something's got to happen. Because I got to worry about my own before I worry about anybody else. I got to. It's what I see. I can't identify with nothing else if I don't identify with you. I say again, I beg you to hear this thing, understand what it is that we're asking for, and what we're asking for not just for us, because your grandchild or whoever else, or your grandmother, somebody else can be in the same situation. So this is for humanity itself. It's a bill for humanity, not just for the so-called Muslims or this guy over here or that guy over there or the Christians or whatever. It's a bill for everyone. It's a bill for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Atiba Kwesi, and I am the co-chair of the West Philly Voting Bloc. I am also a proud member of the Muslim Voting League. I don't believe I'm here again talking about this housing situation. It was 6 months ago I was here, and we have been calling for a moratorium on the sheriff sales and hearings on this very issue, so we could really find out what was going on. And Councilman Jones called for the moratorium and the hearings, and everybody voted yes. Every one of you up there voted for a moratorium and for the hearings. And I sent a letter to you 2 months ago asking what happened to that. You voted for the moratorium, but nobody wanted to make any moves to enforce it, to have the sheriff enforce it. And it's not like you can't, because you enforced it 2 times before. So I listened to the people that was testifying here speak about how if we were to have a tax amnesty, how that tax amnesty was going to cost the city money. because right now it's tax season. Well, if you enforce the moratorium, then we'll have time. They can finish their taxes, and then we can begin to address how much it's going to cost or what the setback will be for the amnesty bill. 6 months ago, I came before the council, and I stated that in January of 2018, there were 28,000 owner-occupied, tax-delinquent properties up for sale in this city. 28,000. Mind you, this was the 50th year of the Fair Housing Bill. 6,000 of this 28,000 were senior citizens. Senior citizens. Some of these senior citizens, I sat and listened to their story, and some of them had lived in their houses for 40 and 50 years. They owed less than $10,000 on their properties, and they were being sold at the sheriff's sale. And I heard testimony here about how it was so easy, and I'm very sorry that Councilwoman Sherelle Parker has not decided to walk out, because testimony was given here that it was so easy to get into one of these programs. Well, let's look at that. First of all, the LOOP program you have to qualify for. One of the qualifications is I believe is that your taxes had to go up at least 2 or 3 times in the same year. Many people didn't qualify. That didn't happen to them. It wasn't that their taxes went up. It was that they owed taxes, and for some reason the city came after them for, like I said, for less than $10,000. So there are barriers other than just walking down and say, I want to get into a program. There are other barriers to getting in, Mr. Henon. So it's not that easy. Also, up until they revamped the program, which was a couple months ago, if you were in foreclosure, you couldn't get into a program. You had to go through the housing counselors before you could get into a program. So it was never that easy to just walk in and say, I'm behind on my taxes, I want to get into a program. They just revamped the programs. Now you can walk down there and the revenue department can stop your foreclosure the way that the housing counselors used to be able to do. So you can go down there now. But again, how do we advertise the programs that exist in this city? I've went around, my organization has went around, and we have asked people, senior citizens who have letters saying that they're for sheriff's sale, ask them about a program, they don't know anything about it. You have a group of individuals from the Revenue Service whose job it is to notify 28,000 people about programs. How is that even possible? Whatever happened to public service announcements on the radio and on television? There has to be a better way to notify the people of the programs that you're talking about if you're going to use that as some type of measure stick. How many people even know about the programs, and how are you letting them know? When we start there, then if you say, well, we've been doing all these things to let people know, and they still don't act, then yes, I can see you wanting to use that and tell the people, well, that's not our fault, or it's this easy. But that's not how it's been up until less than 2 months ago. Now all of a sudden, they're opening the doors for the programs, but they're still not letting people know about the programs. How about we think about that for a minute? If in fact the people don't know about the programs, nobody can use them. And this thing about 96% of collections and how great that is, let's understand something. 96% of the tax collections, that includes the taxes that are collected from the sheriff's sales. So if you're selling people homes in record numbers, of course you're going to be collecting taxes in record numbers. It doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. So saying that it's a great thing that we're collecting taxes at 96%, when you have a record number of, especially senior citizens, losing their homes, that's where that number boosts up, because you have a record number of people losing their homes, and that money's going to the taxes, but nobody wants to talk about that. Let's talk about how the property tax gets so high. Everyone in here knows that the OPA has been incorrect when they assess people's taxes. I give you an example. The property that we just had to deal with on 46 and Market. We were at the hearing, they tried to tell us that the property was only worth $10 million. This was supposed to be an assessment. Who did that assessment? The city paid $51 million to renovate the property, but it was only worth $10 million? Who's supposed to believe that? Yeah, the city paid put $51 million into a property that they turned around and sold because they said it was only worth $10 million. They sold it for $10 million. This is what we're dealing with. And you don't give a tax amnesty, but you can throw away money like that. Somebody, yeah, that's what it comes down to. If it's not your money, you don't care. See, these are the things that we're thinking about. These are the things that we're coming down here and saying, this is why we need to have a tax amnesty. And let's think about this. If we're losing money, if this money being lost to the schools, then how about we reverse that tax abatement and start using that money to put into the schools? These millions of dollars that are being taxed, the tax abatement's going. Use that money and let that money take to schools while we get an amnesty. While the senior citizens who have put their time and effort for the last 50, 60, some of them 70 years, they have been paying taxes. How about they get a break? I understand that the city has to always look at revenue because the city is a business like anything else around here. But I believe that it's only common sense that at some point we start thinking about how many people are going to lose their homes because the city is more concerned about their revenue than the people who have provided them with revenue for the last 50 years. When do the poor people of this city get an opportunity to get a break? My father used to tell me when I was a kid that, you need to have a very good job because they come for the poor people first when they collect taxes. This is a perfect example of what my father was telling me. We're asking, and see, I believe that they put this in committee so that y'all can hold it up. That's what I believe. They told me it was 9 people in the committee. I didn't see 9 people here. They told me that if we don't get a vote of 5 people, that it gets stuck in committee, and it doesn't go to the city council, even though we already had 11 people who were going to vote for this bill. But if it stays in committee, it never gets to them, so it never gets voted on. Some more political movement, I'll say. I'm asking. I'm not begging. Muslims don't beg. Muslims do not beg. I'm asking. I'm asking that you look at this situation. And yeah, like I said, I understand that it may cause you to have to give up a few dollars. But we've been giving up a few dollars for a few centuries. I'm not even going to go into the slavery and all that. We're not going to get into that because this is not a black thing. This is a human thing. The poor blacks, the poor whites, the poor Hispanics, they all have been suffering from this tax, crazy taxes, and from the sheriff sales. So I'm asking, we're here to ask, not to beg, but to ask, that you vote this out of committee and support this bill so that we can allow our people, and I'm talking about the people of Philadelphia, to get a break and be able to keep our homes, stay in our communities, and be a part of this, what y'all call the 2035 plan. We don't want to have to be outside the city and have to get a pass to come in here for 8 hours and then get kicked back out. I was born here. My grandmother was born here. I feel like I have a right to be here. And I have a right to the same rights that everyone else is supposed to have. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for that opportunity. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Give us a break for once. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
We need you to pull the mic closer, identify yourself, and then begin your testimony.
Good day. My name is Donna Cargill. Abatement and amnesty. I don't know your name, excuse me. The sister asked one of the councilmen what was the difference.
What's your
between
name again?
Donna Cargill.
Spell Cardell.
Cargill, C-A-R-G-I-L-L. Okay. Okay. The words abatement and amnesty were given to one of the councilmen, and the sister asked him what was the difference. He never gave an answer as to what was the difference. So I guess he needs Google like I need Google, I guess. Anyway, they said in 2011, 44% of the amnesty was given out of Philadelphia. So was that other 56% installed in Philadelphia? That's another question that wasn't addressed or answered. Yes. My mom's on the fixed income. She gets $1,200 a month. Tier 5 says, I think the maximum was $25,000, so she's under that. So she gets no amnesty? This is a question I have, because I said to her, I said, oh, Mom, they got this tax amnesty coming up, and it's going to cut your taxes. She said, when? I said, well, let me see, you're 86? Probably not in this lifetime. Probably not in this lifetime. So she's under the eligibility level. How does that work? 96% collection rate for real estate and 90% for other collection rates. So that's like 186%. So does any of that money go toward this amnesty? Can any of that money go toward this amnesty? Is there any of that money left to go toward this amnesty? All right, well, so I'm here to give this testimony. As I read over it, it's more like a plea. It says, please, city council members, I'm asking for your help. I'm a single mother with 4 children living in North Philly. I acquired my grandmother's home, which was passed down to my mother, and now I have it with my 3 daughters and 1 son. Recently, I received my tax bill, and my taxes went up to over $4,000 a year. And she got 4 kids. 3rd generation house. I was already behind on taxes that my mother owed when she owned the property. Now my taxes in total are over $43,000 in arrears, with the last 4 years being the new assessed amount, which added over $20,000 to my already delinquent, and the other $23,000, which was only $11,000 in principal, which if my bill was $11,000, I could have been given a payment agreement at $11,000, but since it's now $23,000, she doesn't get anything either. That I could have afforded, but which is now out of reach. It says, I went to the Office of Property Assessment, the BRT, and Community Legal Services with no help from any of them. It's not fair. And right across the street, it says this from her, they are building new homes with no taxes at all. So for this person who's putting out this plea, do she get tax amnesty? Because the sister, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. No, not you, it was the other sister. She was giving out scenarios. Sherelle, she was giving out scenarios. And she said, so the parking lot attendant who's delinquent, does he get amnesty? The gentleman said yes. For the man, for the small business owner on the corner selling drugs in the store, out of store, around the store, would he receive tax amnesty? The gentleman said yes. But this woman, who doesn't have a business and whose property taxes have been raised double the amount. It doesn't say what type of job she have, any of that, but she has 3 kids. So we know she's into some type of work. She gets no amnesty. And this is not fair. This is not fair to her and to all who represent her and to all who's in the same field as her. It's not fair to the seniors who are on fixed incomes. They only get like $19 in food stamps. What you gonna do with that? Buy a loaf of bread and a thing of milk? There's only so much French toast you can eat. So yes, tax amnesty, it would be best for everybody. Once again, this is not a beg, this is a plea to the sensitivity that we need to have for each other, for our hearts, for our minds, just for us to survive in Philadelphia. We're not even talking about out of Philadelphia, we're talking about in Philadelphia. The Philadelphians need this, in order to keep their homes, to pass it on, to raise their children. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Tiffany Green, and I want to speak on this bill. I want to say thank you to my brothers and sisters for even bringing this up. This is necessary in a time of gentrification being at the foremost of Philadelphia. I want to talk about in terms of why we shouldn't even have to go through hours of asking, pleading, or whatever the case may be at this particular point, because it's critical that we begin to protect ourselves and particularly protect the Black community in Philadelphia, because we are the #1 target. We are the turkey on the table. Let's not forget that. In Point Breeze and in our area, Smith School was sold to a developer. A school that was filled to capacity, over 400 kids, majority was on the lunch program, which meant that they were of a certain income. Majority were renters. When this school was sold to the developer, a particular developer, now he's going to put 75 market rate units in the school. And not only that, he's putting 25, not $500,000 homes in the schoolyard. It has just been put out on Zillow, $795,000 for 25 schools in the schoolyard. Tax abatement. Is that a tax abatement? Or is that tax amnesty for newcomers coming into Philadelphia? That is a serious problem, and that's why we have to start putting things in place to help our people stay in their homes. I was just coming down on the bus, and I just want to say, and they have the Laurel. The Laurel is located at 1911 Walnut Street off of 20th and Sansom. And I said, let me look that up. Now, the Laurel, according to PhillyCurb.com, is a $300 million tower by the Southern Land Company. Are they getting a 10-year tax abatement on this 48-story tower? Now, in the tower, this luxury residential tower, up to the 25th floor will be market rate rental units. Now, are we getting any money off the luxury rental units that has been all down Center City? Where's the money coming off of that? Then from the 26th floor all the way up to the 48th floor, I just want to read what they said real quick, and then I'm very short. The $300 million tower at 1911 Walnut Street will have retail and lobby. Up to through the 25th will be market rate rental units, and including pool, fitness, or whatever. Then it says the remaining stories will hold luxury multi-million-dollar condos. Now, under the condos, they qualify for 10-year tax abatement. Then if you go on, they say the upstairs condos start at 1,700 square feet for $2.4 million. Are these new residents going to get a tax abatement for $2.4 million and reach up to 9,000 square feet for $15 million? They're going to get a 10-year tax abatement. So why are we sitting here talking about should somebody get amnesty Do you qualify for this? Do you qualify for that? When you are giving out 10-year tax abatements for $2.5 million condos, $15 million condos, $300 million towers, and then you allow the developer to come in here, do a $300 million tower, and he gets to transfer his 10-year tax abatement out to all of these other individual residents. And you're going to sit here and say that's not amnesty? No, this bill actually does not go further enough. It needs to be 50% off a principal, anybody owing more than $2,500. Because if you even went down and got a payment plan, we recently had a tax meeting with Vicky Rowley, bless her heart, and if you got more than $2,500 and you only paying $20 or $25 or $50, you're never going to catch up. So why not make it a level playing field? Because you're not going to catch up. We need to make it whereas if you can owe more than $2,000, you should be able to get an amnesty for 50% off the principal. Not just the principal, not just the interest and penalty, but let's talk about the principal because you'll be here for the next 10 years trying to pay off this little bit of principal. It is not fair. We have hundreds of buildings, quite a few buildings down Center City that have luxury condos that are getting 10-year tax abatements, that you're letting this money walk out. No, the 10-year tax abatement should be coming to an end. Not no fix it, not no reducing 10, 9, 8, 7. No, the reality it was supposed to spark it. It wasn't supposed to get to the point where it pushed us out. We understand that. So I just want to finish it up with the fact that I think that we need to take into consideration that this one building alone is not contributing to Philadelphia. You can't go to enough restaurants and movie theaters, as certain people say, well, they're bringing revenue into the city. No, it's not enough movie restaurants to make up the difference of how much money and tax credits the Laurel is getting from Philadelphia. With that, I think that this should be this shouldn't be an issue. It should be passed through, and I would like to see it amended down the road that it includes principal for those that owe more than $2,000. Because the reality of it is that when you're at the Bellevue Stratford with the fountain and everything flowing, and the developers are over there patting you on your back, at that point you're offering them 10-year tax abatement on $300 million towers. Thank you very much.
Yes, council members and everyone else. I'm Imam Wali Ayub Bilal. Most of you have, all of you, not most of, every council person and the 3 of the commissioners, 2 of them that was here and 1 other deputy commissioner has a package from me about problems that I have firsthand that I see from experience, the necessity to deal with tax amnesty and make the field playing. I apologize, council people. I know I can't, Councilwoman Parker and everybody, I know I can't tell you all what to do. I'm a imam and I'm in the habit of talking to people. When I see that I'm being rude to them, I try to ask them to stop talking so I can hear them. What I say may not mean nothing when you all finish. We see the numbers. I didn't know until Atiba said what he said, that there was supposed to be a certain number of people here to even make it relevant as a vote from committee. And I pray that you all take us seriously. I mean, I don't like name calling and all that old stuff. I appreciate some of you that's right there. Mr. Greenlee, if you can they hear this? Mr. Greenlee, Mr. What's y'all, Henon, Miss Henon. I'm an old guy. I'm old, probably older than you anyway. And I would like, I don't want to take your time, but I would like you to at least seem like you're listening to us. I'm a Vietnam vet. And when people look at me, they say, thank you for your service. You all even said it. And I appreciate that. And I was trying to think, what would I say in a few minutes if I got a chance to do it? And basically, I think all of you should do something with this bill that Councilwoman Cindy Bass has proposed that would make the city of Philadelphia say to the council people, thank you for your service. I don't see it where we should be battling. We trust you. You know what I mean? In other words, we vote for you. Please, please. I got to say it to my brothers and sisters too. Let me talk. I appreciate what you all do. You 17 people can't handle every situation in the city. We know that. But this, started with others as well as Imam Suchadeen. It's pretty much a no-brainer. With all the problems that's going on in America today, and even the city of Philadelphia, we copy other cities if they do something good and we bring it and try it here. This is the city of brotherly love. Once upon a time, we did things in Philly and they took it somewhere else. If you all will take your human side, of which you use every day, and I definitely don't mean that as an insult, and just realize that the people are under pressure. I mean, I got a problem that I say, man, God must be allowing me to go through this problem because there must be a lot of people that get heart attacks and strokes and just lose their property because they don't have the stick-to-itiveness to fight. I can't believe that the revenue department, from somebody else's voice, I have to know it from my own experience, they're not friendly to the citizens. It's hard talking to them. They look at a piece of paper and they say, you're wrong, like as if the person don't know what they have been doing all the time. We need your help. And we may use the term begging you or, we need it because we trust you to represent us. Councilman Clark is my district councilman. But all of you are. When you make a decision, whoever wins as a majority, when the decision is made, affects me. The president don't affect me, but the council people affect me because I'm in this city. So I don't look at us as separate. I look at us right now as needing your help. But as someone said, not just for the Muslims, not just for the blacks. What's wrong with giving the city? Somebody said earlier, you don't want the bad, not exactly word for word, but the bad ones to get this tax break. There used to be a saying when I was a child that it's better to let 10 guilty people go free than arrest one innocent person. If you made a decision that affected everybody, whether they got money, whether they crooked, whether they broke, black, white, homosexual, whatever. If you did that for the city just to help it heal, the good people will respect that. The ones that don't respect things, they ain't gonna respect it anyway. You give them something, they're not gonna respect it. You take it from them, they're not gonna respect it. But there are people that really believe in the government. When I was in Vietnam, I didn't know how much I was believing in the government. And I don't like everything that's done. But it's not done for just me. It's done for the world or for the country or, in this case, for the city. So, no, I'll join in, but I don't like hollering and rabble-rising and stuff like that. But our appeal is just hear us. I mean, it's logical that if I'm rich and you can give me a break, but a poor person got to pay the weight of what I got a break for, what's wrong with giving that person a break? So the people who don't have are being spoke for here, and you all will be the ones that answer the call. If you all say yes, let's all just do it. It shouldn't even come to the people, as some didn't and some did. Don't give nobody a reason to attack the council. Rather, let us all support it. Collectively, you agree that the citizens of Philadelphia need help. The killings won't stop. People don't have relief. I mean, it's just, we know it's crazy. Whatever's coming from other areas, Philadelphia should be an example. Our council should, I don't vote for people. I might vote Democrat. I was a Republican committee person for a period. I'm looking for the best person. But I don't vote for anybody to get in office and then hold up what they are, Democrat or Republican. I vote for the best choice to help the people, not just me. I don't want a mayor that I could put in my pocket and he's my mayor and nobody else can speak to him, or a council person. But I want all of them to have an ear for when something is hurting me or hurting somebody else in the community. You hurt, we feel it. But if we hurt, you should feel it. So it's easy. It doesn't take much to say, let's pass this. Now, I have a way to look at it. I didn't inherit the property. I inherited debt because I brought a property. This is the paperwork I put before all of you. And I'm not pleading my case right now. I'm also giving an example of my mindset. The people owed taxes from 1999 to 2005. Nobody ever said anything to them. I didn't look at it as racial, but nobody said nothing. September 2005, I put my signature to purchase it. March 6, 06, I got a notice to go to sheriff's sale. 6 months into it. Now, we rumbled and we talked and everything, and I paid money, no less than $500 a month for the first year. Got a TRB agreement to pay $100 a month. And 50% of everything was wiped off. At the end of 2007, they told me $100. I love that because that means I could never break it. So somehow the Department of Revenue with this amnesty bill shouldn't say come in and pay half. What can you pay to have this done within a year, 2 years at the most? And if you do that for the person, now they have the relief to say I got an agreement, maybe I can go to the bank and borrow some money. Now we're doing business because now the banks are alive. Poor people pay their debts. If they didn't, they wouldn't have been in their homes as long as they were. So here come Pac-Man, the strong, mighty God of some kind of structure, developing system that just eat up all of the cities. And they don't care if it's black or white for real. If they got a chance to get something cheap, they're going to get it and they'll eat up everybody in it. So we're asking you, we thank Cindy Bass as a councilwoman who drafted the bill. I think there's some things could be put in it so it still don't hurt people. Our book says to us, let the debtor, the person who's going to pay this debt, dictate what they can pay, as long as they agree to pay it. Because like myself, that's why I gave that illustration, they said $100. When you look at my record, I hope you all go look at that paperwork I gave you because I still want to talk to you. You'll see I never paid less than $1,000, most times $1,800 a month. And this is what happened. You need 3 years to revamp the Department of Revenue without talking about amnesty, just to revamp them. An attorney came from, and this intimidates our people, poor people. I've seen older Caucasians crying in the court, worrying about losing their properties. The attorney comes in and he says, to a judge I don't know and I didn't know him, never met him. Mr. Bilal had a $100 agreement and he broke it. The judge didn't ask me anything. He immediately said, I enter a decree. You got 90 days to make an agreement or go to sheriff's sale. It's been put up on sheriff's sales a month or so ago. Man never talked to me, but he lied. I asked him, why did you lie? We're going to just get $40,000 for the property. You either bring the money. We don't need people talking to the people like that. On another day, I'd probably take him out in the yard and do what anybody would do to him. He wouldn't fat mouth like that. But that's not the way to do it. So I appeal to you all, not just to look at what happened to me, but look at what's running our city. I mean, people need help, and that's what I'm appealing for. All of you should talk on everybody getting in it to help the city, the people of this city, get a relief. And don't leave anybody out. I don't care if a man that already getting a gift get another gift, as long as the small people get one. Give us a chance. I'm a businessman. 13 years. I can't open my property because they kept saying I owed taxes I paid. That's wrong. And every time I go talk to somebody, they say, "Oh, go see this one. Oh, you've been here." I've been going for over 100 and some times since I've had this property, just to be told the same thing. "Oh, Mr. Bilal, yeah, everything you say you paid, we got that. But how did you apply it? That I got so much debt." And this is what's happening over and over and over again to people. And it's not just, I witness, it's not just blacks. It happens to many senior whites and young people too, Hispanics, people of color, and blacks. I don't see it as being partial, but we need you all to be a team for us. Get out of this Republican, Democrat. You're already in office. Work for the people. You know what I mean? And when we talk to you, listen to us. When you talk to me, trust me, I listen to you. You know what I mean? And my young imam, we won't let him hurt nobody. You know what I mean? We'll keep him cool. You know what I mean? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've tried to hear everyone who wanted to testify. If there was no one and no other statements from us, our panel, we will now conclude our hearing and enter into our stated meeting. The chair recognizes Councilmember Henon for a motion on bill number 190186.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Make a motion to move bill number 190186 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. And further, move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of these bills at our next council session.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 190186 be reported from this committee with favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Excuse me, Madam Chair.
I think she has the call for the nays, so it was going. Go ahead. The chair was moving in the right direction.
Okay. I apologize.
All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay.
No.
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 Now I'm going to ask for a repeat. Those saying nay.
No.
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 All right, the nays have it, and therefore, bill number 190196 will be reported from this committee with an unfavorable recommendation. It does not get reported out.
Madam Chair,
Motion.
point of order, please. The motion was to move it favorably. It was voted down, so there's
Yes.
nothing coming out of committee.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay?
This bill will not be reported out of committee because the nay vote has won, and therefore we thank everyone for coming. This will conclude our hearing, and thank you all for being here.